Chapter 781. In other words, they gave up on the Saraira and chose to look for the thing you mentioned? Helly and Vivian's thoughts were running fast even at this moment. Oldly nodded. It's a magical mirror that can pass through the gate of life and death. Once it leaves the mausoleum, the path to the underworld will be opened. After the mausoleum falls, it will be the Exorcist City's turn. The Exorcist City cannot fall. Once the Exorcist City is gone, the divine exorcism seal will be completely destroyed. By then, the demons will run rampant and the 6 paths of reincarnation will be destroyed. Humans will have no way out. Upon hearing this, Zhuge Yun could not help but cry out, "Why is there such a thing in the mausoleum?" Old Li covered his face with his hands after hearing Zhuge Yun's words. "It's all my fault. I shouldn't have told anyone about this." "Old Li, you don't have to blame yourself." Helly and Vivian's eyes were very calm. Even if you didn't tell them, they already knew about the existence of this mirror in the mausoleum. Someone wanted to revive the previous iPhone, so of course, they would know everything. If they couldn't get the Saraira, they would choose the second method. This is also the real reason why the Ni family wanted to enter the mausoleum. As she spoke, she looked at the exorcists. Young Master Yun stopped everyone because of this. However, there were many things that he didn't know and couldn't explain to everyone. Now that the truth is in front of everyone, it's useless to pursue the past. I will get the Saraira. As for the rest, soon, all the demons in the mausoleum will be revived. Whether we can get out of here alive depends on everyone's cooperation. Every exorcist nodded solemnly. Only an eye who did not move. He looked as if he was scared out of his wits as he stared blankly at the corpse beside his feet. He was the only one in the Ni family who did not mutate. However, it was because he was conscious that he was in so much pain. How could this be? It shouldn't be like this. An eye who burst into tears. The wound on his leg and the bite on his neck made him look like he was on the verge of death. Helly and Vivian had no time to care about him. She had never been a saint. When she was about to walk over, he grabbed her trousers. "My sister can't be a corpse. There must be a mistake somewhere. Maybe she's like my father, eating a devil pill, which is why she became like this." Helly and Vivian knew that Ni who only wanted an explanation at this moment. She looked at him and said in a voice that was neither loud nor soft, but loud enough for everyone to hear, "She was a corpse from the beginning. Even your father ate a magical pill because of her. Maybe you didn't realize that the spiritual aura on her body was a disguise because of your father. She absorbed your father's spiritual aura. Your father knew that using a corpse to raise a corpse would cause a lot of resentment, but he still did it for the sake of the entire Exorcist City. He allowed you to bully the Zhuge family and joined forces with other families to suppress the Zhuge family. It was all for the same reason. He wanted to monopolize everything and did not want his ambitions to be known. Once the exorcists found out about his intentions, not only would they not follow him into the tomb, they would also try their best to stop him. Of course, your father was also used by others. He really thought that he could get all the power he wanted by obtaining the Saraira. In fact, your sister only wanted to use your father to complete the heaven-defying resurrection technique. Once the Saraira was in her hands, your father's death would also come. I don't believe you. You're lying. Our Ni family has only had one son for several generations. There has never been a female child. Once a female child is born, she will definitely be the reincarnation of the Phoenix Girl. The Phoenix Girl came from our Ni family. Because of this, my father specially named my sister Ni Feng because she is the Phoenix Girl. Do you know anything about the Phoenix Girl? She would never do what you said. Ni, who was obviously shocked to the point of a mental breakdown. Helly and Vivian, who was about to take a step forward, paused. If that's the case, then I'll tell you. The Phoenix Girl has never been reincarnated in your Ni family. That was just a lie your ancestors told for the sake of benefits. In an instant, the entire ancient tomb fell into a silence that had never been seen before. Ni who widened his eyes in disbelief. Old Li also looked at Helly and Vivian beside him. Little brother Wei, this old man is not doubting your words. This old man just wants to ask, how do you know that the Ni family lied? That was hundreds of years ago. Old Lee will naturally know when we get the Saraira. Helly and Vivian did not hesitate and walked into the last cave. Zhuge Yun quickly followed and said with a tone full of admiration, "Brother Wei, you're really amazing. You can actually make that woman reveal her true form with a candle. Is there such a method in the Book of Exorcism? Why haven't I seen it before?" Helly and Wei paused for a moment before continuing. "That's not really a good idea. I just wanted to save time by provoking her into going berserk. In fact, whether it's a corpse or a human, as long as you don't blow at the candle won't go out." Zhuge Yun was speechless. "So what you said just now was a lie?" Helly and Vivian did not feel guilty. "Of course I have to use some tricks to win against this kind of acting. Young man, you still have a long way to go in life. You need to know how to adapt to the situation." The bigger fetus and the smaller fetus nodded heavily as if they were agreeing with their mother's words. "That's right. One must adapt to the situation." Zhuge Yun muttered, "If an iPhone knew that you were just testing her and couldn't really verify her authenticity, I wonder if she would be so regretful that she would vomit blood now. As long as you don't say anything, she won't know." Helly and Vivian turned around and glanced at Zhuge Yun. She smiled. "You've learned to be smart. The next time you see her, you should mention this to her. I guarantee that she will be so angry that she will grit her teeth. She might even reveal her true form for the second time." Zhuge Yun was shocked by Helly and Vivian's words. "See her again? How is that possible?" "Why not?" Helly and Vivian looked at the main coffin not far away and her eyes darkened. "You've seen those mutated exorcists. Once an iPhone comes back from the dead, more people in the exorcist city will mutate one after another. We won't be faster than them because I have to get the Saraira first. Moreover, the person following her is not a simple person. Do you know who he is?" Zhuge Yun shook his head. He had never paid attention to the follower following an iPhone. That person was too good at hiding. If it was not for his beautiful moves just now, Zhuge Yun would have thought that he was just an ordinary person. The exorcist guardian, Jing Wushuang. Helly and Vivian touched the handle of her gun. "So we will definitely meet an iPhone again. There will even be a tough battle in the exorcist city." Chapter 782. Helly and Wei's prediction was right. Although Jing Wushuang was injured, his movements did not slow down at all. He had the innate ability to influence demons. Just look at the resentful baby that had been following him for hundreds of years. "Young master." The resentful baby carried a gourd on his back and looked at him worriedly with dark circles under his eyes. "Let's rest for a while before we continue. We're almost there anyway." Jing Wushuang coughed heavily, and his breathing became a little chaotic. However, he still insisted on leading an iPhone forward. He did not say a word. His side profile was as gentle as jade, with a coldness that had never been seen before. His injured arm was still bleeding. However, he looked as calm as usual. When they reached the black coffin, he smiled and said in a gentle voice, "Open the gourd. She needs resentment." The resentful baby nodded. He always obeyed Jing Wushuang with his dark circles under his eyes. He opened the gourd with his small hands and sprinkled the resentment around the black coffin. The curse of resentment was activated. Illusory faces surged out from the magic mirror like white smoke. "Go in." Jing Wushuang led an iPhone, whose face was covered by a veil, over to him. His eyes were filled with a comforting warmth. "Soon, you'll truly come back to life." An iPhone had been waiting for this day for too long. From the moment the man found her, she did not want to be a corpse anymore. Her father was gone. The Ni family, and even the entire exorcist city, should belong to her. Without any hesitation, an iPhone lay down in the black coffin and closed her eyes. Jing Wushuang smiled faintly. The blade cut through his injured arm and let out a lot of blood, just to complete the resurrection curse. The resentful baby looked at his pale face and lips at the side, but did not say anything. He seemed to be used to it. He was used to what his master did in order to bring that person back. The bright red blood seeped into the coffin as if it was being absorbed by something. The aura in the magic mirror surged and rushed to the top of the coffin with resentment. Rumble! A roar from the depths of the earth shook the gates of hell. Under the bridge of helplessness, the black water boiled. The evil ghosts that could be seen with the naked eye all bared their fangs and brandished their claws, trying to break free. Their black claws reached into the mortal world, trying to tear apart the seal on the divine great land. The reapers couldn't help but tremble. They looked at each other, and the chains in their hands that were used to bind souls were shattered by the formless resentment. In the seventh hell, the little king of hell was sucking on his pacifier as he listened intently to King Yenluo's lecture. Even though he was nothing compared to King Yenluo, who was as tall as a mountain, he was nothing more than a speck of dust. But his shouts were unparalleled. "What's going on? Is someone trying to kidnap me again? I'm free now. Tell them to come quickly." Reporting to Little Master. No, it wasn't a kidnapping. Someone touched the magic mirror. The underworld judge wobbled as he held onto his tall hat. When the Yama King heard the two words magic mirror, an unprecedented baleful look appeared on his face. Say that again? Why was he being passive? Magic mirror? The magic mirror in the mausoleum? Yes. The underworld judge didn't get to finish his sentence. Then King Yenluo left in a flash. Only the little king of hell was left behind, his hands and feet bound. The little king of hell paused for a moment, and then immediately said to the underworld judge, "Undo the mysterious ice shackles on my hands." Oh no. Although the underworld judge stuttered, his stand was firm. The son of the king of hell narrowed his red eyes. Say that again. Do you want to undo it? Undo it. Compared to the master, the little master's viciousness was the most terrifying. But, little master, where are you going? The little king of hell looked back as he opened his bag. Didn't you see? I'm going to the mortal realm to save the humans. Do you still need to bring a lollipop for young Master Hook when you're going to save the humans? The underworld judge exposed the little king of hell's lie with a sense of justice. Little master, I feel that at this time, the most important thing for us is to maintain the order of the underworld, and not to talk about love. Furthermore, you're still young. The little king of hell carried the bag on his shoulder, looking very cool. Little Sue, listen to me, there's no use in maintaining the order of the underworld at this time. There are still 24 hours before the seal is completely broken. After 24 hours, the path of life, death and reincarnation will be tampered with. Unless the Phoenix Maiden truly awakens and reseals the mainland, the evil spirits trapped in the 18th level of hell will still leave when they need to. The world is about to end, and you still want me to work overtime in the underworld, not allowing me to reunite with young Hook. Think about it yourself. Do you still have any humanity? Hearing this, his way of doing things was indeed a bit wrong. Little master, if the path of life, death and reincarnation is tampered with, the dead will come back to life, and the living will die. Young Master Hook won't be born. At this crucial moment, the underworld judge finally stopped stuttering and roared out what he wanted to say. The little king of hell suddenly stopped himself from taking a step forward. His handsome little face turned around abruptly, and his big red eyes narrowed into a line. Damn it, I actually forgot about this. The underworld judge wiped the sweat off his forehead, thinking that he finally managed to keep the little master. He saw the little master throw the bag on himself. I have to make a trip to the mausoleum and find the Phoenix Maiden. Let her think of a way. Wait, little master, wait. Rumble. There was another violent tremor. The resentment gathered and took form. Countless shadows were sucked into the black coffin one after another. Finally, they merged into one with the blood, injecting a soul into the corpse in the black coffin. An Feng's eyes opened abruptly. Her whole body twisted strangely. After the dust fell to the ground, she became as soft and natural as a human being. There was still warm blood on her arm, but she didn't care at all. Her fingertips lingered on her wrist. It was as if she was feeling the aura that she had touched not long ago. That strong and familiar aura with a sense of Buddha. She stuck out the tip of her tongue and licked her wrist. With an unusual smile, she looked at the man standing at the side. There was a touch of warmth at the corner of her mouth. Wushuang, I'm back. As she spoke, Her eyes lit up as if she smelled something. She softly said, "He's here too, right?" And Ai Feng's fair face was slightly flushed. She looked at the other side of the mausoleum in a daze and sighed slightly like a young girl who had fallen in love. Jing Wushuang nodded and bent down to carry her. "The demons and ghosts are coming. Your body is still very weak. Let's go back to the exorcist city first." "All right, I'll listen to you." And Ai Feng gently lowered her eyes, but she was still reluctant to leave. And the person she was reluctant to leave was Beligaju. Chapter 783. The ghost baby saw everything and for the first time, felt pity for its master. Because no matter how much its master did, the other party could not see it, and would always be concerned about others. Rumble. The third tremor. Along with the ancient tomb, the stones tumbled down. Under such circumstances, the exorcists found it difficult to stand still. Unfortunately, there was still a barrier in front of them. This light card was the existence of a two-faced person. The front was Buddha. The back was Bodhisattva. The Buddha's side pitted all living beings. The Bodhisattva's side frowned slightly. The two-faced person was meditating, holding a string of prayer beads in his hand. No matter how the tomb shook, his figure did not change at all. Behind him was the Saraira that was emitting spiritual light. However, there was not only one Saraira, but at least 3 of them. Beligaju squinted his golden eyes. Looking at the two-faced person's face, he felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. What's the situation? Why are there 3 Sarairas? Zhuge Yun was a little dizzy. Elderly muttered shakily, "You have to choose the right one. Once you choose the wrong one, the real Saraira will self-destruct." It turns out that the legend was true. When Grandmaster Hume passed away, he gave the experience of the Buddha to the people of the world so that they could make a choice. His own soul was the guardian of the relic. When he left the world, he once prophesied that in the future, there would be countless people wanting to obtain his relic, and he was waiting for those who were fated with Buddha. To put it bluntly, you have to choose one of the 3. Hellion Vivian, who was approaching the main coffin, looked at the Saraira that was close at hand, and spoke quickly, "No hints." The two-faced person smiled. "Benefactor, you can ask this penniless monk 3 questions to determine which of the 3 is the real relic. However, there is one point. We have 2 sides. One side is telling the truth, while the other side is telling lies. Therefore, this penniless monk's hints might not be correct. You need to distinguish them yourself. If you guess wrong, there won't be a second chance. The relic will immediately self-destruct. How about it, benefactor? Do you want to guess?" The hints given are not necessarily correct. "How can I guess then?" Zhuge Yun finally stood firm, but he could faintly feel that the air around him had changed. The peachwood swords on every exorcist's back were clanging, strongly indicating the arrival of the demons. Zhuge Yun turned his head and looked at Hellion Vivian. "Brother Wei, we need to hurry and leave the ancient tomb. Now that the other party has activated the resurrection curse, the Saraira won't be of much use anymore. In a while, a group of demons will appear and evil chi will surge out from the tomb. Without the protection of spirit chi, you will die here. Then I still want to get the Saraira." Hellion Vivian interrupted Zhuge Yun's words and said in a clear voice, "You and the other exorcists take elderly and leave first. When I get the Saraira, I will meet you all." Zhuge Yun hesitated. "But, Madame Zhuge is still waiting for you in the exorcist city." Hellion Vivian's eyes were extremely bright. "Don't forget what Elderly said just now. Once the ancient tomb falls, the exorcist city will be in trouble. Moreover, Ai Feng and the others will definitely return to the exorcist city. You can go back and protect Madame Zhuge." Zhuge Yun looked at Hellion Vivian's face and knew that he could not persuade her. He gritted his teeth and said, "We will wait for you first and try to suppress the evil chi. After half an hour, if you still haven't gotten the Saraira, we will return to the exorcist city first." Hellion Vivian indeed needed people with spirit chi to help her suppress the invasion of the evil chi. Although His Highness was omnipotent, he did not have spirit chi. It would be best if the exorcists could buy time for her, because Helian Vivian knew that the baby in her stomach could not be invaded by any more evil chi. Otherwise, it would be completely demonized. She would never allow that to happen. Helian Vivian calmed down, closed her eyes and began to think about the two-faced person's words. She was allowed to ask 3 questions. It sounded like a lot. If she asked whether a Saraira was real or fake, she would be able to determine which one was real. However, it was possible that the other party was lying. This would cause a lot of trouble in choosing the Saraira. It was very possible that the first Saraira was real, but if she met the lying person, he would tell her that the Saraira was fake. Not only would it waste a question, but it would also make things more chaotic. She would choose the wrong one in the end, and the Saraira would self-destruct. Therefore, if she wanted to find the real Saraira, she had to solve this problem first. Helian Vivian's eyes suddenly widened. They were as bright as the stars. She had to first determine which side of him was telling the truth and which was lying. I've decided to guess. She looked at the two-faced person. Her expression was neither servile nor overbearing. The two-faced person chuckled. Very good. This is the first time this poor monk has met someone as straightforward as you. Don't you want to think about it for a while? There's no need. Helian Vivian's expression was as calm as usual. Her eyes were so bright that they seemed to be shining. After hearing her confirmation, the two-faced person turned his body and looked at Helian Vivian with the side of Buddha. He was kind and serene. Since that's the case, please ask the first question, benefactor. Helian Vivian looked at the exorcists who were casting spells behind her. She pointed at Zhuge Yun and asked clearly, "Is he a human or a demon?" Everyone was stunned when they heard this question. They all looked at Zhuge Yun. Zhuge Yun, who was still trying to cast spells, looked at Helian Vivian with a confused expression. His eyes immediately changed and he was very excited. "Brother Wei, don't tell me you suspect that there's something strange about me? I swear I really don't." "I know." Helian Vivian smiled with a unique black-bellied flavor. "It's because I know there's nothing strange about you that I'm asking." When Zhuge Yun heard her words, he could not help but smile bitterly. "Brother Wei, you only have 3 chances to ask a question in total. You actually wasted one of them." The other exorcists also felt that this question was somewhat inexplicable. Helian Vivian did not explain further. She only looked at the serene Buddha. "What's your answer?" The Buddha did not seem to have expected Helian Vivian to ask this kind of question. He paused for a moment and said in his usual serene tone, "Demon." "Very good." Helian Vivian smiled. The corners of her mouth curved into a smile. "I see." The Buddha's side was lying. That corresponded to the Buddha's side being telling the truth. When they heard the word demon, everyone almost instantly understood the meaning of Helian Vivian's question. She was using this method to determine which side was telling the truth and which was lying. She was too smart. This person was really too smart. Chapter 784. The exorcists had no way to describe their feelings at this moment. Looking at Helian Wei's eyes, other than shock, there was worship. Elder Li's heart was also hanging. For hundreds of years, no one had ever been able to take something out of the tomb, let alone take a master's Saraira. This was originally something that only the Phoenix Girl could do. At least, that was what he thought in his heart. But now, Elder Li's gaze landed on Helian Vivian's face. Without any hesitation, she asked the second question. "All right, then is the first Saraira real or fake?" This time, the one who looked at Helian Vivian was Bodhisattva, who was frowning slightly. His voice was also different. "It's fake." Bodhisattva's side was speaking the truth, so she only needed to confirm one of the 2 Sarairas. Helian Vivian narrowed her eyes and pointed at the second Saraira. "Then what about this one?" "It's real." Bodhisattva's side turned around, still as serene as before. "Benefactor, the 3 questions have been answered, now please make a choice." Helian Vivian curled her lips and smiled, looking into Bodhisattva's eyes. "I choose the 3rd Saraira." "Benefactor, are you sure?" "I've told you, the 2nd Saraira is the real one." Bodhisattva chanted Amitabha, then shook his head. "You'll regret it." Helian Vivian's voice was very faint. but her aura was very strong. I'll say it again, I choose the third one, give me the Saraira. It seems that benefactor is sure, good. Not only Bodhisattva, but also Bodhisattva on the other side smiled after seeing Hellion Vivian's determined gaze. Following the two-faced person's actions, the soil fell off. The Buddha's light, which was enough to soften all living things in the world, soared up from the two-faced person's body and hit Hellion Vivian's body one after another. The Buddha's light dyed her white and green clothes into a flowing, brilliant golden color, as if she was being crowned a king. Waves of Sanskrit chants rang out from the graveyard, as serene as the sunlight. This old monk has waited for hundreds of years. Finally, the fated one has come. I didn't expect it to be an old acquaintance. Haha, back then, you had the Buddha bone and Nirvana epiphany. Now, it's time to return the gospel that originally belonged to you. Amitabha. With that last sentence, the two-faced person collapsed with a loud crash. The relic, which was emitting Buddhist light, fell into Hellion Vivian's hand. There were still many things that she did not understand. For example, the Nirvana epiphany that came into the world with a Buddhist bone. For example, old acquaintances. The only explanation was that she knew this master in her previous life. However, that was not important. What was important was that she had obtained the Saraira. Without any hesitation, Hellion Vivian swallowed the relic in her hand. In that instant, in the surging river, countless living beings swept over in the form of rebirth. The bell of the hidden spirit temple rang for the 999th time. The light of the Buddha shone brightly and the golden lotus bloomed. The evil spirits in the netherworld seemed to have been restrained. They retracted their claws, but they could not resist the demonic red in their eyes. The relic in the mausoleum was also taken away? King Yama stopped in his tracks. His handsome and arrogant side profile, under the illumination of the 18 levels of hell, revealed a playful expression. Interesting. The judge trembled as he stood up. Lord, little master, he disappeared again? King Yama coldly snorted. Don't worry about him. You, on the other hand, lock up the most secret files in hell. Don't let anyone see them, especially those who like to cause trouble in the underworld. The judge was shocked. The files that Lord is talking about are from the two lords of the heavenly Tao and the Buddhist Tao 1,000 years ago? King Yama laughed, with an evil aura at the corner of his mouth. What do you think will happen once that person recovers his memories in the heavenly Tao? The judge looked left and right, then reached out to wipe the cold sweat on his forehead. I don't know. Back then, that lord fell from the heavens and became a demon. No one could do anything to him. It was just that the Buddhist Tao did not allow the existence of love. It was just a heavenly tribulation. It depended on whether one could survive it. And that lord never seemed to care about heavenly tribulation. No one could stop him from doing what he wanted to do. If Buddha blocked him, he would kill Buddha. If God blocked him, he would kill God. Even falling from the heavens was just his self-imposed exile. Boom. With the last sound, the underworld's bridge of helplessness began to loosen. More than half of the mausoleum in the mountain was shaken away. Only the churning stone dust could be seen. Anai Feng looked at the scene beneath her feet and pushed her face into the man's chest that was filled with the fragrance of Buddha. This was the smell. Back then, in front of the Buddha, this was the smell she smelled the most. It seemed that she was the only one who remembered. Those things that happened a long time ago. Bodhi, oh Bodhi, you didn't have a heart, but you fell in love with the person who raised you. It's all thanks to that person that you never knew what was on your mind. It was just a joke, yet you took it to heart and took it seriously. That's why I had the opportunity to impersonate her so brazenly. But Anai Feng's fingers tightened on her long sleeves, and she smiled gently. Wu Shuang, why didn't you follow our original plan to occupy Hellion Vivian's body? Instead, you chose this one. This was indeed her original body, but what she wanted was to completely replace Hellion Vivian. Only by messing up her fate could she become the real Phoenix Girl, and then get that man. Jing Wushuang's slender fingers paused, and she said in a gentle voice, "Now you're back. Were you hesitating just now?" Anai Feng smiled faintly, and her eyes were gentle. It's rare to see you hesitate for someone other than me. Sigh, our Wushuang has really grown up, and is no longer that little Bodhi. Hearing Ni Feng's words, Jing Wushuang seemed to have thought of a very beautiful memory, and her thin lips curved up. The ghost baby watched from the side, and also felt a sense of satisfaction. There were too many things that it heard from its master. In order to bring the Phoenix girl back. No, it should be said that it was to bring that lady back. His master had already exhausted all his means, including that lady giving up Buddhism and choosing to face the great destruction. It even used the Bodhi body to bear the last heavenly tribulation for that lady. That was why the Phoenix girl was not abandoned by the Six Tao and reincarnated. 500 years of searching. They didn't know how many temples and Buddhist sects they visited. They kowtowed and prostrated on the mountain road, not for an audience. Just for a little clue. Finally, there was someone who called out his name through the bamboo shadow. The ghost baby had never seen its master so happy. But that lady never knew what its master had done. Including that he bore the heavenly tribulation for her, gave up his Buddhist fate, and used his 9,999 lives to exchange for her life of reincarnation. No one knew these. Chapter 785. The ghost baby paused, its eyes widening as it habitually reached out to grab Jing Wushuang's clothes. Ni Feng also noticed the ghost baby's action, but she didn't say anything. She knew that Bodhi was very smart. If she wanted to deceive Bodhi, she had to do less and talk less. In her previous life, when he found her, they didn't talk much. At that time, she was sent to the demon world, and he tried everything to save her. But he never knew that she agreed to go to the demon world because of that man. She was so close to getting Beligaju. If it wasn't for someone who came out to mess things up, the person by his side now wouldn't be Helly and Vivian. However, from the looks of it, none of them seemed to have remembered what happened in the past. Including Helly and Vivian, the spiritual energy in her body seemed to have disappeared completely. Who would have thought that the reincarnated Phoenix girl with the Buddha bone would be in such a sorry state? Now, it seemed that she didn't need to worry about anything. The mausoleum was destroyed, and the Phoenix's Nirvana rebirth Dharma would never appear in the human world again. As long as the Dharma didn't appear, she would always be the real Phoenix girl. As for Helly and Vivian, without the protection of spiritual energy, even if Beligaju killed thousands of demons by her side, as a human, she couldn't resist the invasion of evil energy and miasma. Now, she only needed to return to the exorcist city, control all the exorcists, and use the magic mirror to gather all the spiritual energy in her body. Then she could change the 6 paths of reincarnation, resurrect the dead, and let the living die. Once the cycle of reincarnation was broken, not only would she be able to control the world, but she would also be able to become one with the Phoenix girl and obtain all of her fate. Jing Wushuang didn't know about this. From the beginning to the end, she was the only one who knew what her goal was. Since Yu Lao said that once the red string was tied, but whether it was a mistake or not, it would always exist. Then, she would turn herself into the Phoenix girl and become that person's one and only. The muffled sounds coming from the depths of the earth never stopped, and the dust floating up from the mountainside could be felt even from the exorcist city. The world was about to change. The teams that did not reach the entrance of the tomb within the allotted time had already returned to their starting positions. Now that he heard the sound of breathing coming from the ground, it was as if something was about to drill out from the ground. Not only were the children so scared that they hid in the adults' arms, even the exorcists were worried. No one knew what had happened. The referees looked at the sandalwood incense that had been lit on the ground. It had burned out. It was originally used to determine the winner. Whichever team came back first would have a higher score. But until now, other than the teams that had yet to reach the entrance of the tomb, the other teams that had truly entered had not seen a single person. Could something have happened? Don't worry. With Elder Ni and the Phoenix Maiden around, even if something happens, it won't be a big deal. But I keep feeling that something is wrong. Wait a minute. Look over there. Someone pointed at the black fog that suddenly rose from the mountainside. His expression became very frightening. Something is really wrong. The demons and monsters that were suppressed in the tomb have all come out. All of them have come out. That's impossible. As the referees of the clan, Enai Shirchong could not believe that such a thing could happen. But when he turned to look, his voice trembled. How could this be? Madame Zhuge was the calmest among the waiting crowd. She first hugged the little person that had jumped into her arms, then said calmly, "No matter what the situation is, we have to think of a way to deal with it. If we start setting up the array now, we should still be able to make it. Let the children return to the city first." Madame Zhuge is right. Suddenly, a voice sounded from the sky. Everyone looked up and saw Enai Feng with a veil on her face descending from the sky. Behind her was Jing Wushuang. Jing Wushuang resumed her role as an attendant and stood quietly at the side. Her presence was very weak. When the people saw Enai Feng, it was as if they had seen their savior. They rushed over excitedly. "Miss Enai, you're finally back. Why are you alone? Where are the others? And what's going on at the tomb? Where did the black fog come from?" The black fog was released by the exorcists from the outer city. Enai Feng's voice was very soft and she coughed weakly. She sounded like she was grieving. None of us expected that the Saraira retrieval competition would be used by someone with ulterior motives. From the very beginning, we entered the tomb, but it was not smooth sailing. 2 people died as soon as the tomb opened. We had been trying to figure out where the problem was. In the end, we found out that there was a demon cultivator among the exorcists. However, at that time, it was already too late for us to stop it. The demon sealed in the tomb was released just like that. Old Li and my father were also possessed by evil spirits and were left in the tomb. Now that the tomb has collapsed, the demons and monsters will rush over soon. We have to return to the city immediately. Enai Feng said this because she wanted to ensure that Old Li and the others could come back alive one day. She still had an excuse to not let them enter the city. Being haunted by evil spirits, that was the evil side of him. Even if they knew something, she would not be able to silence them in time. No one in the exorcist city would believe them. Humans were born with a natural fear and disgust toward ghosts. As for gods, they would worship them without any reason. Now, to them, she, the reincarnation of the Phoenix Girl, was their god. Sure enough, after hearing Enai Feng's words, the people immediately started to pack up and prepare to return to the city. Madame Zhuge felt dizzy. She held her forehead with her fingers and her voice became hoarse. Old Li and Enai Biao were possessed by ghosts. What about Ayun? Is he alive or dead? Auntie, I know this is hard for you to accept. Enai Feng tilted her head and her eyes were red. She said sadly, "When my father was possessed by a ghost, I killed him with my own hands. I almost broke down at that time, but someone wanted me to give them an explanation, so I could only do that. Auntie, although I shouldn't tell you these things, I have to say that one of the 2 people from the Zhuge family is very problematic. She disguised herself as a man and sneaked into the exorcist city. She has an ulterior motive. In fact, she is not an exorcist, but a demon who has cultivated. She was the one who released the demons from the ancient tomb. As for Brother Yun, he is not dead, but I'm afraid that he is now possessed by evil spirits. Even if he comes back one day, he won't be the real him." Chapter 786. Madame Zhuge's fingers froze when she heard the last sentence. She looked at Enai Feng without saying anything. Enai Feng felt that something was amiss, but before she could speak again, before she could say anything, Madame Zhuge cried, "If that's the case, let's go back to the city as Miss Enai said." Enai Feng lowered her eyes. She knew that she was too sad. "It's good that you can think it through. Take care of the children. I will help everyone to protect the exorcist city." This time, Enai Feng was not lying. Only by protecting the exorcist city could the Buddha bone be completely broken. Those monsters would gather around the exorcist city because of their resentment. With them guarding the city, even if there were any changes, they could buy some time. In another 18 hours, She would absorb enough spiritual energy in the exorcist city and change her life. She would be blessed with the Dharma and become the real Phoenix girl. Mother, is brother really possessed by evil spirits? The little boy nestled in Madame Juga's arms, his eyes red. Madame Juga looked at her little son in her arms. When no one was looking, she shook her head gently. No one could possess Juga Yun's body. 500 years ago, Bodhi the Buddha reincarnated and left the Buddha bone in the Juga family. It was passed down from generation to generation as a protection. Even if he died, he would not be possessed by evil spirits. This was the secret of the Juga family. As a mother, this was the only thing she could do for her eldest son before Juga Yun passed away. When Ni Feng first started speaking, she almost believed everything she said. She was even prepared that Yun would not come back. Until the last sentence. Madame Juga suddenly paused. Ni Feng said that Yun was also possessed by evil spirits. However, this was impossible. That could only mean one thing. Ni Feng's words were not true. For some reason, Madame Juga felt that Ni Feng seemed to have changed this time. She became softer and more enchanting. Especially the light emitted from her body, she was like a holy Buddha. If she did not have the secret of the Juga family, she would definitely believe Ni Feng's words without any doubt. Madame Juga did not dare to think about the consequences, but she had never felt as uneasy as she was now. What was she trying to do? Rumble. Another loud sound rang out. It was like the lightning tribulation of the 9 heavens, striking the ground one after another, creating chaos in the mountains and rivers. The avalanche started from the top of the mountain and rushed over with the momentum of swallowing the heavens. Countless demons were drooling at them. A large group of them were standing right in front of Juga Yun and the others. It was no longer important where the entrance to the tomb was. There were only a few of them left. After an hour of shaking, they had already reached the surface. However, the trees that used to be there were covered by snow, making it a completely different scene. This way, the giant monsters standing in front of them would be particularly eye-catching. I really didn't expect to have something to eat as soon as I came out of the underground. Furthermore, it's an exorcist that's full of spiritual energy. Those monsters licked their claws. Every monster's eyes were so red that one could smell the scent of blood. Although they were the best exorcists in the exorcist city, it was impossible for the 5 of them to deal with more than 10 big monsters. Moreover, they had used up all their strength in the ancient tomb. When they first arrived at the surface, Juga Yun was still looking for traces of Hellion Vivian and the others. Now it seemed that they were lucky that they were not with them. Otherwise, they would only be the appetizers of these monsters. Which one should we start with? I really can't wait. Why are you being so long-winded? Let's each take half a bite. After that, we can go to the Exorcist City's night parade. The big monsters seemed to have other plans. They did not continue talking. The 5 big monsters in front jumped up at the same time and pounced on Juga Yun and the others. Juga Yun's spiritual energy was indeed good, but he could only resist for a moment. When more than 10 monsters behind him pounced on him together, the peachwood sword in his hand fell with a clang. Just when everyone thought they were going to die, a loud bang was heard. Those big monsters seemed to have been bounced off by an unexpected force. Who has the guts to ruin our business? The big monsters covered their faces with their claws and stood up with murderous eyes. A tall and slender figure slowly walked down from the ice and snow. His face was extremely handsome, as if it was carved out of ice. His long hair was covered in snow and scattered on his side. The sound of countless wings flapping came from behind him. Then, thousands of jackdaws rushed out. The sky was filled with black wings and feathers. It was like a big snowstorm, filling the air with a thick black fog. At that moment, Juga Yun seemed to have seen the demon world's sea of blood. There was only slaughter and slaughter. It was no longer the person he was familiar with. It was a demon. At that moment, Juga Yun realized that it was not an illusion. The man who followed him into the ancient tomb was indeed a demon. Moreover, it was the kind of demon that could completely put you in hell. I'll ask you one more time. Did you eat? At this time, Bailey Jiaju was carrying one of the big monsters. The wind was still strong and fresh blood splattered on the side of his face. His eyebrows were deep and hazy. That tyrannical and threatening aura made even the monsters feel terrified. Without waiting for the big monster to finish speaking, Bailey Jiaju peeled off its chest single-handedly, as if he was looking for something. Every time he peeled off one of its eyes, his uneasiness lessened a little, and subsequently, his eagerness increased a little. All the exorcists, including Zhuge Yun, were petrified by what they saw. No one could cut open a big monster's stomach like a chicken, even if it was a demon. This kind of killing power was too great. Zhuge Yun could not help but feel a chill from the bottom of his heart. This man, who is he? Nothing? Still nothing? Then I'll just kill them all. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 big demons had their hearts ripped out by him, but Bailey Jiaju didn't seem to be satisfied at all. His bloody fingers were hanging by his side. That pair of beautiful eyes were no longer deep black, nor were they suffused with gold, but were instead bloodthirsty red. He was actually laughing. That kind of low and deep laughter made people feel even more uneasy at this time. Zhuge Yun suddenly understood what he was looking for. He mustered up his courage and said, "Brother Wei might not have been eaten by the monsters. Calm down." Beligaju slowly looked at Zhuge Yun. The demonic aura on his face did not lessen at all. Only then did Zhuge Yun realize that he had touched the other side's reverse scale. At that moment, a small hand wearing a skull ring popped out from under the snow, and a childish voice was filled with dominance. "Big demon, give me a hand. I'm dragging your wife with my other hand. She's going to sink to the bottom." Chapter 787. Bailey Jiaju's eyes narrowed abruptly. Countless snow and dust rolled up from the ground, gradually revealing the person wrapped inside. Ignoring the little king of hell, Beligaju reached out and pulled Hellion Vivian into his arms. Warmth spread from her limbs. Hellion Vivian smiled at him. There was still snow on her eyelashes. "I was held up by the little king of hell just now, so I came out a little later." Beligaju didn't say anything. He turned around and grabbed the little king of hell's neck. "It was you. When the tomb collapsed, you suddenly appeared and pulled her away." The little king of hell coughed heavily. "How would I know that the tomb would collapse at that time? When the two-headed dog smelled your scent, it happened. How can you blame me? Every time you appear, nothing good happens. How did your father discipline you? Why didn't he obediently lock you in the underworld and let you harm the human world?" Beligaju had always been unwilling to let Hellion Vivian interact with the people in the underworld. She was a human, and as long as she was a human, it was better not to come into contact with these dirty things. The little king of hell also saw that a certain someone's misophobia was acting up again. He waved his hand. "I won't ask you to repay me for saving your life. Let's talk about this matter of defying the heavens and changing fate. Also, I'm here today to find your wife, not you. Big demon, can you be quiet? Killing a demon is so bloody. I'm still a child, it's not good to see these things. My old man has always paid attention to my education in this area and has never allowed me to kill in the human world. I've been doing good for so many years, so don't force me to fight with you. It's not good for both sides to suffer." "Both sides to suffer?" Beligaju lifted him up and looked him in the eye. He sneered. "With just you?" The little king of hell swallowed his saliva and said, "What I mean is that we should make peace. You can't attack a child who is so much younger than you, right, big brother?" Beligaju was definitely disgusted by the title of Little King of Hell. He swung his arm and threw the child a few meters away. The little king of hell's head happened to be facing downwards. With a mouth full of snow, he flapped his two short legs and pulled himself up like a radish. Zhuge Yun really thought that these two people would fight. At the very least, Little King of Hell's first reaction should be to roar at Beligaju. It was said that the seventh King of Hell had always had a bad temper. He was vicious and sinister, and a low roar was enough to make 100 ghosts cry. As naive as Zhuge Yun was, he did not expect that the first thing the Little King of Hell did after standing up was to look at himself in the mirror. I'm still so handsome. Ah, snow-white skin, black hair, bright eyes, and white teeth. I really can't be more handsome. I really want to take a picture and send it to Little Hook on WeChat to relieve his lovesickness. The little king of hell was crying because of his own handsomeness. He had completely forgotten that he was in the ancient world and not the modern world. Wait, Little Hook. Zhuge Yun's mouth was still twitching as he thought about what else the little king of hell would say. In a flash, he carried the huge black scythe and appeared less than 20 centimeters away from Hellion Vivian. You have to find all of your memories and be reborn as a Dharma. Only then can you reseal the door to the human world from the demon world. Otherwise, the 6 Tao will be destroyed and the cycle of reincarnation reversed. No one will survive. My memories? Hellion Vivian narrowed her eyes. What memories do I have? My past life? The little king of hell shook his head and avoided the gazes of the exorcists. His voice was tender but steady. Not your past life. It's the memories of when you were on Mount Meru and were ranked among the Buddhas. Ranked among the Buddhas? Hellion Vivian's eyes narrowed. The king of hell's son touched the bridge of his nose and said, "That's what the information says. I saw it secretly. Anyway, you used to be a Buddhist. I thought that you would be fine after you recovered your spiritual energy and gave birth to a baby. Who would have thought that you would provoke the 10,000 years tribulation? Now that a Buddhist has awakened, your power is not enough to deal with her. In another 18 hours, she will change your fate and take away your Dharma form. By then, not only you, but all living things in the world will have their fate changed. Everyone will disappear, and there will be no more variables in the 3 realms, nor will there be any more life. This should be a method that Buddhism came up with to get rid of bad karma. The heavenly axiom also acquiesced because they would not allow uncontrollable variables to exist, such as you and the great devil. Of course, when that time comes, the evil spirits of hell will also be wiped out by the light of Buddha. All demons and devils will be suppressed into the blood sea, just like how they dealt with the great devil that year. However, the great devil was willing to break his soul and wander outside the 6 realms to be reincarnated as a human. But this time, the disciple of the Buddha, the Golden Lotus, wants to destroy you. The great devil will not agree. Moreover, the people of Buddhism are too much. Why do they want to wipe out all the bad karma in the world? Woman, this time I will stand on the side of true love and support you with all my strength. After listening to his words, Hellion Vivian glanced at the little one and smiled. You and Little Hook can be considered as a kind of bad karma. We are true love. The little king of hell was very serious. Every time Hellion Vivian heard such words from a little kid, the corner of her mouth would always twitch. Her highness was as venomous as usual. She looked at the little king of hell coldly. Are you sure you are not the one who has one-sided love? Half of the king of hell's son's face darkened. After the darkening expression, it was replaced by a heart-stirring evil look. Even if it's one-sided love, I still want that person to live. You don't understand this kind of feeling, right? Speaking of which, I am a little similar to that Bodhi tree. As he spoke, he looked at Hellion Vivian. Seeing her half-raised eyebrows, he smiled viciously. Oh, by the way, woman, you still don't know who Bodhi is. He is the guardian of exorcism. In fact, he is not guarding some exorcist family but you. What a pity, Buddha is born in many forms. You are not the same as you were before. Who would have thought that you don't even recognize your favorite Bodhi? Back then, you sat beside Bodhi every day, chanted Buddhist scriptures, watered Bodhi, and even gave him a name. However, you definitely don't remember any of this. That is why it is said that the one who falls in love first is destined to suffer. Favorite Bodhi tree? Beligaju laughed. A sinister look flashed across his eyes, and a strong sense of oppression came toward the little king of hell. Little brat, it seems that your brain is still a little muddled. She likes me the most, not some Bodhi tree. Are you worried? The little king of hell smiled as if he had seen through some secret. That's right. According to the information in chimeric hell, if it wasn't for you, Phoenix wouldn't have been sealed in all her Buddhist scriptures. Her 3 spiritual and 7 physical souls wouldn't have been shaken, and she wouldn't have been able to reincarnate. It was you who cut off her gospel. Chapter 788. Upon hearing this, Bailey Jiaju's dark eyes flashed red. He raised his head and looked at the king of hell's son. His voice was filled with murderous intent as he said, "I should have killed you just now. The information is just something written, it won't make people angry. But when people talk too much, it's different. What do you think?" "I don't know if it's true or not." The little king of hell met Beligaju's eyes, not showing any signs of backing down. However, she has to use the magic mirror to retrieve her memories. You should also want to know what happened thousands of years ago, right? Why did you fall from heaven? Why did she become a human? And the things I mentioned to you before, aren't you curious? Beligaju looked into the little king of hell's eyes, his voice extremely cold. "There's no need. Whether it's killing a god or slaying a demon, I can do it. There's no need to retrieve the memories from thousands of years ago. To put it bluntly, you're still not sure." The little king of hell curled his lips and hit the nail on the head. "You're afraid. Afraid that the things written in the unjustified hell are all true?" Beligaju's fingers that were holding Hellion Vivian paused for a moment, then he laughed. "Even if I did those things, so what? What?" The little king of hell didn't expect to hear such an answer. Beligaju narrowed his eyes. A sky full of crow feathers flew out from behind him, sweeping up snow and dust. The demons that wanted to ambush him in the distance all held their throats in pain. They didn't understand why a man's anger could make it so difficult for them to even get close. "Even if I did those things, so what? What's wrong with locking her up?" Beligaju repeated each word. That cold smile was filled with contempt for all living things. It was very arrogant. The little king of hell cursed. "Is this a simple locking? She's basically pulling out her bones so that she can't be a Buddha in this world for the rest of her life." As he spoke, he turned his head to Hellion Vivian and said, "I finally know why this man can win. He is really too shameless. If he doesn't allow you to return to Buddhism, then you will only belong to him. Are you sure you want to follow such a pervert? Do you want to remarry? There are many handsome guys in the underworld, unless you like to be tortured and tied up. Think about it carefully. This is a major event in your life. Before marriage, love is intense. After marriage, divorce because of domestic violence can be found everywhere. Think about it, you are at least young and beautiful. Don't take things too hard and tie yourself to a big devil." Every time Hellion Vivian heard a 5-year-old child talk about such adult topics, she wanted to laugh. "Don't worry, I'll get a divorce if things don't go my way. When the time comes, I can even find someone younger than me, like your little hook." Little King of Hell was rendered speechless. "Great demon, hurry up and drag your wife away. She wants to destroy my family. This venomous woman. You still have delusions about my little hook, don't even think about it." Little King of Hell was really irritable. He held his big black axe in his small hand and chopped off the heads of several demons along the way. He said that they were all his love rivals. He didn't even want to take a look at them. Zhuge Yun didn't know what happened to this child. With the 7 Hells King of Hell leading the way, it was indeed easier to move forward. However, it didn't seem right for a group of them to follow a child around. Something like killing demons and monsters was left to the child. Zhuge Yun turned his head to look at Hellion Vivian and Beligaju. He saw that the two of them had a natural expression of enjoyment. He felt that this was a little shameless. The other exorcists were not as magnanimous as Zhuge Yun. When they saw the demonized Beligaju, they had an indescribable feeling in their hearts. The one who followed them into the ancient tomb was actually a demon. Although this man had helped them a lot, exorcists had always been born to exorcise demons. It was their duty to uphold righteousness and ward off evil. They knew that the most important thing now was to expose the true face of the eldest daughter of the Ni family. They couldn't let her deceive everyone anymore. Otherwise, once the demons invaded the exorcist city, they would be consigned to eternal damnation. However, it was really awkward for them to fight side by side with a demon all the way. The smart Beligaju had long seen through these people's thoughts. The corner of his mouth was half raised. It was the kind of ridicule that Helly and Vivian couldn't be more familiar with. If anyone in this team wants to leave, you can leave now. Helly and Vivian suddenly spoke. Her voice was very light. The road to the Exorcist City will be more dangerous. We don't have time to be distracted by internal conflicts. As soon as she finished speaking, two exorcists left awkwardly. They never thought that one day they would regret this decision. Before they left, they had to give their yellow talismans to Zhuge Yun. Take these, we will also go to the Exorcist City. But to be honest, people of different paths can't make plans together. Little brother Yun, little brother Wei, you're on your own now. If it was the previous Zhuge Yun, he would definitely say a lot of things, whether it was to persuade them to stay or send them off. However, after so many things, this young man seemed to have suddenly grown up. Yes, he had a firmer belief. He only said one sentence on behalf of Helly and Vivian, okay. He didn't take the yellow talismans from the other party and asked them to be more careful. Perhaps Brother Zhu was a demon, but at this moment, Zhuge Yun didn't think about the good and evil that had been instilled in him for a long time. Should he deny the other party just because of their identity? The Ni family was a highly respected exorcist family. How could the things they did be any better than the demons? Compared to those who were wrapped up in layers of appearances. He would rather believe in the companions who had been with him all this time. Then, they would walk together. Helly and Vivian didn't understand why young Master Baiyun suddenly looked like his blood was boiling. However, since the Buddha's golden lotus was waiting for them in the Exorcist City, it must be very good at leading people to do good. When the Buddha's light shone, Sanskrit chants could be heard everywhere. People who were not firm enough would be easily influenced and lose their ability to distinguish. When the time came, it would become a problem. It was better to get rid of it now. The exorcist's leaving was also a good thing for them. She couldn't let anyone who wasn't firm know that she needed the magic mirror to regain her memories. When the time came, the plan would be leaked. If she couldn't succeed in one strike, the cycle of reincarnation would be tampered with. She wouldn't allow anyone to be so arrogant as to want her man. Also, her two babies had not been born yet. She even planned to let them carry their small school bags and look for the dean. The other party wanted to take away everything that belonged to her. Helly and Vivian had a temper. Those who dared to touch her things, she would definitely let them die without a burial ground. With such a ruthless personality, was she really a Buddha in her previous life? Helly and Vivian glanced at the little king of hell again. How did I become a Buddha in the first place? Chapter 789. How would I know? The little king of hell was now looking at her with hostility. Go away, from now on, you are my sworn rival in love. Helly and Vivian snorted and pulled the little king of hell over. How could you not know? I have never liked to gossip about other people's affairs. Let go, watch your behavior, I have a family. While the little king of hell was talking to Helly and Vivian, he did not forget to hit the demons that were rushing over. A little kid with a fucking family? Helly and Vivian narrowed her eyes and looked at him for a while, then smiled and said, You are so handsome today. The little king of hell immediately stopped his actions. With a fierce expression on his handsome face, he raised his tail and said, Woman, you are not good at anything, but your taste is not bad. What clothes do you wear? A 36-degree handsome little boy with no blind spots? Helly and Vivian continued to say sugar-coated words. The little king of hell enjoyed it very much. He hugged Helly and Vivian's leg like a brother, leaving the demons and whatever for the big demon to beat up. He said with a smile, Seeing that you have such good taste, I will tell you everything I know. You must have done something in the past. The Buddhists gave you a chance, but you didn't seem to care, so you attracted the heavenly thunder tribulation. Your real body dharma form is the phoenix, born in hell, but you attracted the light of Buddha, so the Buddhists naturally want you to convert. As for how you became a Buddha, I really don't know. But I think with your temperament, it is impossible for you to be a vegetarian and pray to Buddha. Not bad, you know me very well. Helly and Vivian patted the child's shoulder. So how do you plan to attack the exorcist city? There are so many demons, you will need to borrow the soldiers of the underworld, right? Otherwise, how can you save your true love? The little king of hell narrowed his red eyes. What do you mean by saving my true love? I am the one helping you. Once the cycle of reincarnation is changed, your little hook can't be born anymore, right? Hellion Vivian flicked the Wong character on her forehead with her finger. You're such a vicious person. Why would you come out to help me? You must be up to something. The little king of hell stretched out his hand and covered his face. How can you say such impatient words to a child? I'm still young, so don't lead me astray. However, you don't have to think about the underworld anymore. If those people could be used, I would have already captured them and beaten up those bastards from the Buddhist sect with me. Everyone who stops me from pursuing my true love is a bastard. Do you understand this? I understand. You can continue. Helly and Vivian really felt that the person who could raise such a child was definitely a weirdo. The little king of hell smiled. It's a pity that they can't be used. The people of the underworld are most afraid of the Buddha's light. If they are influenced by the Sanskrit and turn around to stab me, my true love will be gone. So on this point I am the same as you. Didn't you just send away some useless exorcists? There are not many people who dare to go against the Buddhist sect these days. Of course, your man is different. He is the one who can destroy the three paths. I remember in the past, you were among the Buddhas, but he still wanted you. You were the leader of the Buddhist sect at that time. He was the only one who dared to provoke you and even took out your Buddha bone. But didn't you say that I reincarnated with the Buddha bone? Hellion Vivian narrowed her eyes. The king of hell's son furrowed his brows. I'm not sure about the details, but someone must have found your Buddha bone and protected it. I feel that all these things were done by Bodhi. According to the words in the Hell of Innocence, when you betrayed the Buddhist sect, all the Buddhas were furious and wanted to send down the thunder tribulation. No one was willing to speak up for you. At that time, the great demon had already fallen for 100 years and was not in the six paths. Bodhi was influenced by your Sanskrit and turned into a human. He gave up the gospel of the head of the Buddhist sect and bore the tribulation for you in the mortal world in exchange for your reincarnation. But he mistook an iPhone for me. Hellion Vivian raised her eyebrows. The king of hell's son nodded and added, however, don't underestimate him. Everything he does is for your sake. Hence, it doesn't mean that he will harm you even if he mistook an iPhone for you. What do you mean by that? Hellion Vivian looked down at the little person in her hand. The little king of hell smiled and his eyes were cold. Even though you know you can't get it, you still don't give up on what you like. You have to do more than others. Do you know how Phoenix can be reborn? Hellion Vivian did not speak. The little king of hell looked into her eyes and continued, bathing in the fire of hell of the demon god and feeling the light of Buddha illuminate the world. Only then can Phoenix be reborn and not be bound by Buddhism and become one of the variables in the world. No matter what he does, the end result is to help you break free from your shackles. Otherwise, you'll be dead in this life. He mistook you for someone else, but the result of what he wants to do will not change. No matter who Phoenix is, as long as he attracts the light of Buddha, it's considered a success. He's a person who does things without leaving any loopholes. He takes everything into account, including himself. Buddha always says that in the unseen world, everyone has their own destiny. If you want to come back, someone will stop you. If you want to change your destiny, you have to be ruthless to yourself. Bodhi is probably such a person. He helps you break free from the control of Buddhism. Other than this method, there's no other way. Of course, all of this is just my conjecture. As for what really happened back then, only the people involved know. I'm telling you this now because I want to tell you that you have to recover your memory. No matter what the result of that memory is, you have to get it back. Although this will make the great demon unhappy, he probably doesn't want you to remember what happened in the past. I'll be unhappy indeed. A black feather suddenly brushed past the son of the king of hell's cheek. Bailey Jiaju dealt with a big demon with a flip of his hand and strolled toward the two of them. His eyes were as dark as ink as he said, however, compared to these, I'm more interested in knowing who bullied her when I was possessed. I have to get my revenge. The little king of hell touched his face, still in shock. You still want to kill people at this time? Aren't you worried that she didn't like you at that time? That you were the one who snatched her away? The light in Beligaju's eyes dimmed, and then he said very slowly, snatching is also a kind of ability. Shameless, too shameless. The little king of hell felt that he was completely defeated. Hellion Vivian smiled and held Beligaju's hand. What do you think of my taste? You're the only good thing about me? When His Highness was in a bad mood, he would laugh viciously. However, he had to admit that he was comforted by her holding hands. Hellion Vivian really didn't know what to do with this man. She smiled and said, well, do you think this only good thing about me was still there at that time? Bailey Jiaju raised his eyebrows and casually sent the flying snake demon flying. Hellion Wei Wei saw how cool his actions were, so she smiled and said, what I mean is, I don't think I will like anyone else other than you. Chapter 790. Hearing this, the little king of hell, who was stretching out his paws, paused. Hey, woman, are you showing off your love with your man in front of me? Hellion Wei Wei did not bother with the little brat. Her eyes were still fixed on Bailey Jiaju. Even in the most dangerous times, as a domineering president and arms tycoon, she had to be proficient in sweet-talking so that her other half would be moved. In a while, when His Highness pounced into her arms to seek comfort, she had to tell him handsomely that love rivals were not a problem at all. Unexpectedly, that person just glanced at her and looked down at her condescendingly. Isn't that natural? If you don't like me, who else would you like? Then, he continued to beat up the monster. Hellion Vivian. Why, every time he speaks, she has the urge to remarry. Strangely, this time, His Highness actually left a way out for the monster. He let it go halfway through the beating and then said to Hellion Vivian, come here. As a pregnant woman, Hellion Vivian didn't want to argue with him. The main thing was that if His Highness didn't agree, she really couldn't say that she could get her memories back. After thinking about it, she decided that it was better to listen to his orders and go over. But before she could reach that person, he grabbed her wrist and pulled her into his arms. Her nose was filled with that person's scent. The evil fragrance was like a bouquet of flowers blooming in hell, enough to make anyone fall for it. Every time this man wanted to hug her, he never took the initiative to walk toward her. He insisted that she walk toward him. He would never change his desire to control. It was really just... Hellion Vivian smiled and rubbed her face against the man's chest. You definitely don't want my dharma to be taken away by others. Because of a broken lotus? Beligaju's beautiful lips curled up mockingly. Hellion Vivian thought to herself, no matter what, she was still a golden lotus of Buddhism. Why did it sound so worthless in His Highness's mouth? I allow you to get your memories back. Beligaju said in her ear, his voice was very deep. But you listen to me, you will always be mine. If you dare to have the slightest thought of wavering, I will lock you in the demon world and let you never walk out of the door for the rest of your life. Hellion Vivian raised her eyebrows. Why does it sound like you don't think I liked you in my previous life? Don't say things to anger me. Beligaju lowered his head and bit her neck. His white teeth, his white teeth. Hellion Wei Wei did not care about how the exorcists behind them looked at them. She turned her head and planted a kiss on the side of the man's handsome and flawless face. She smiled faintly and said, no matter what you did to me in the past, I will still love you as before, just like how I am now. What can I do to you? Other than making you beg for mercy, what else can I do to you? Bailey Jiaju laughed. It was very affectionate. Even the strength of his fingers pressing on her back became a lot stronger. The smell of blood was very strong, but it was enough to make people feel at ease. Hellion Vivian automatically ignored the fact that she was going to beg for mercy. Her face was a little hot as she changed the topic. Then let's go into the city to look for the magic mirror. Wait a minute. The son of the king of hell walked over unsteadily with an axe in his hand. I know that both of you are very capable, but you can't use spiritual energy or demonic aura when you enter the city this time. Otherwise, the other party will definitely notice. Think of a way to contact the people in the city and disguise yourselves as ordinary people to enter the city. Helly and Vivian thought for a while and said, wouldn't it be faster to steal the magic mirror directly? Woman, didn't I just tell you that the phoenix has to fall into hell in order to be reborn? What kind of place do you think the exorcist city is now? Groups of demons gather, hundreds of ghosts roam at night, attracting the resentment of heaven and earth. Even the underworld is shaken. The current exorcist city is no longer a city of the human world. There will be more demons swarming there. Moreover, these demons are not there to eat humans. Once the cycle of reincarnation is reversed, the exorcist city will become the new gate to hell. Countless demons will surge out from underground. They want to celebrate, and during this time, they will not allow anyone to enter the exorcist city and ruin the feast they have been waiting for 1,000 years. The little king of hell looked up and saw the exorcist city in front of him. His frown deepened. Moreover, there is the aura of demons in there. It's really not easy to deal with. So we need someone to create a diversion. Beligaju curled his lower lip and quickly decided on a battle strategy. He turned around and said only 2 words to the empty land, "Come out." The exorcists heard a loud dragon roar. As the wind and clouds rose, they suddenly turned around. A huge green dragon faintly appeared above the man's head. And on his left was the ancient Qilin that could attract the flames of hell. Zhuge Yun swallowed his saliva. These people did not know what Helly and Vivian and the rest said, and no one would think that Helly and Vivian was the Phoenix Girl. They only felt that the homosexual relationship was enough to challenge his cognition. Now, 2 ancient divine beasts had appeared, and they were only for him to command. The remaining exorcists looked at the huge dragon eyes and dragon whiskers, and their fingers were a little stiff. They remembered what was recorded in the exorcism book. It was an era when demons roamed freely, and it was also the era when the exorcist families were at their peak. But at that time, the person in charge of the 2 worlds was a great demon. In order to prevent demons from disturbing the human world, the exorcist families followed the will of God and sent down 38 divine exorcism seals to seal the king who looked down on the world. It was said that there were 4 ancient mythical beasts by that man's side. In other words, he was the king who could command all the demons in the world? The exorcists looked at Beligaju, and their expressions did not relax for a moment. All of them were speechless. Even Zhuge Yun did not expect that the other party would have such an identity. The peachwood sword in his hand fell to the ground with a crack. Hellion Wei Wei only glanced at him and understood what was going on. Her voice was very flat as she said, "What's wrong? You can't accept your identity as Brother Jew?" "Not really." Zhuge Yun scratched his head. "I thought it was just written in the book. I didn't expect to see the real person." "No, that's not right. What I want to say is, didn't they say that he died under the divine exorcism seal? How did he come back to life?" Beligaju was originally arranging the whereabouts of the green dragon and the Qilin. When he heard Zhuge Yun's words, he sneered, "You want to kill me with just 38 little yellow talismans? Stupid human. Are the divine exorcism seals little yellow talismans?" Zhuge Yun felt that his profession was deeply humiliated. At the same time, he felt ashamed and scared. That's right, at this moment, all the exorcists realized that the man standing in front of them was not an ordinary human or demon. He was a legendary existence. When the exorcists thought of this, they could not help but look at Helly and Vivian. If Beligaju was that man, then who was she? Chapter 791. Green Dragon Qilin, you guys go to the south and use all your strength to fight those stupid demons, just like when I'm around. After Beligaju finished speaking, he took off the gloves on his hand and threw them aside. He smiled at Helly and Vivian. "No one can beat me in the game of killing. If a rotten flower wants to take you away, she has to ask if I'm willing." Helly and Vivian deeply felt that His Highness' description of Ni Feng would never change. "A rotten flower? Let's go to the north." Beligaju raised his head and looked at Zhuge Yun. There was a hint of evil in his smile. Take out the thing you're wearing on your neck. Zhuge Yun paused and widened his eyes. How did you know? Don't talk nonsense, I don't want to snatch it. The Ligaju frowned his good-looking brows and was full of disdain. Besides, other than Vivian, I don't like to touch any other human. Zhuge Yun didn't hesitate and reached out to take out the pendant hanging on his neck. This is our Zhuge family's heirloom Bodhi, Buddha bone. It's Buddha bone. Little King of Hell rushed forward with his huge axe. His demonic red eyes lit up. Big devil, how did you know that this guy has a string of Buddha bone? Beligaju's thin lips curled up slightly. I saw it a long time ago, but I didn't know it was Buddha bone until you said that someone's original body was a rotten Bodhi. Jing Wushuang is the only Bodhi on Mount Meru. Thousands of gods and Buddhas have to pass by him before they can be listed among the Buddhas. It shouldn't be described as rotten, right? Little King of Hell felt that this man just cared. He cared more about another person than he did for Hellion Vivian. Beligaju swiped his finger. Do you have a problem with that? Not at all. The Little King of Hell covered his neck and winked at Hellion Vivian. What he meant was, tell your man to restrain himself. It's not good to kill people at any time. Hellion Vivian pulled Beligaju's other hand and said, the Buddha bone can conceal your aura. We will enter from the north gate. The Green Dragon and Qilin are at the south gate. Are you trying to create a diversion? I want to kill everyone who has designs on you. Beligaju lowered his head and smiled. You are mine, but these people can't recognize this fact. Hellion Vivian looked at him and said, are you full of demonic energy now? Why is the murderous aura so heavy? Unless you don't want to see me, nothing else will make me want to kill you. Beligaju's eyes became even redder. Come, let me ask you a question. What? Hellion Vivian raised her eyebrows. Beligaju leaned over and whispered in her ear, if one day you have to make a choice, demon world or Buddhism, what will you choose? Did you remember something? Hellion Wei Wei had been feeling strange since just now. Beligaju's voice became much gentler. Some unimportant images. When I was looking for you in the ancient tomb, some images appeared in my mind. But those are not important. What's important is what will you choose? Hellion Vivian was still holding his hand and said in a lazy voice, Demon world. Liar. Beligaju's eyes were red like flowing blood. Hellion Wei Wei paused for a moment. She pulled out a hand and pinched his overly handsome face. How am I lying? Listen, I don't care what you are thinking. The result is that I will go wherever you are. You are so handsome, why are you so insecure? Why would I be insecure? Bailey Jiaju tilted his head arrogantly and pulled her back. When we enter the city, no matter what you see in the magic mirror, you have to remember your current choice. You have to repeat your love for me 100 times no matter where you go. You have to know that it's not easy to find such a good master like me. Yes, yes, yes. Hellion Vivian picked up his hand and kissed it. So now you can let me enter the city without worry, right? Beligaju did not say anything. He pulled her forward with his long legs, which meant that he had acquiesced. The bigger fetus was very disdainful. Repeat that I like him 100 times? Does he think that he is chanting scriptures? Does he want mother to coax him? Is he a child? Father must have remembered something. He is very uneasy now. The smaller fetus's voice was getting weaker. What can make father uneasy? The bigger fetus narrowed his eyes. He knew his cold-blooded father better than anyone else. Other than mother, there was nothing that could make him uneasy. Have all the arrangements been made? At this moment, Ni Feng was sitting on the main seat in the Ni family's meeting hall. Her long black hair was scattered over her robe, and a faint gentleness was exuding from her body. At this moment, her corpse aura had turned into real spiritual aura. She had entered the final stage of inhalation. There were no more exorcists who could detect her flaws. Ni Feng was almost perfect now. The exorcists had 100% trust in Ni Feng. Their attitude was completely dependent on her. Thotha, don't worry. We have prepared according to your instructions. No one will enter the city. We have seen the situation outside. With so many demons, it is impossible for anyone to come back alive. It is not easy for them to enter the city. They will definitely attack the city and use their family members to confuse us. Guarding the exorcist city is the most important thing now. If seniors can think this way, then Feng is at ease. And Feng coughed softly. What I am most afraid of is that a malicious spirit will take advantage of our soft-heartedness and manipulate my father or brother Yun to confuse everyone. While Feng was speaking, a disciple of the family suddenly ran in from outside the door. Eldest Miss, we met 2 exorcists at the city entrance. They said they have a secret to disclose. A secret? Feng laughed bitterly. There are indeed malicious spirits who want to disturb the peace in our city at this time. Who are the 2 exorcists? Is it Brother Yun? When Zhuge Yun was mentioned, Madame Zhuge's hand that was holding something tightened. The person who came to report shook his head. No, it is the 2 exorcists in the city. They want to meet the elders of the major families. After hearing that, Feng let out a long sigh and lowered her eyes. Her voice was soft but penetrating. These malicious spirits are really smart. Once they get in touch with the elders of the major families, they will have the opportunity to harm them. When that time comes, all the uncles and aunts will be controlled by the malicious spirits. Exorcist City will truly be finished. If that is the case, then what are we hesitating for? One of the elders of the major families stood up and said to the person who reported, "Take a few people with you. Tie them up with a dog's blood-red rope and lock them in the dungeon. Don't let anyone come in contact with them." Chapter 792. As for the so-called secrets that they mentioned, none of us are interested in them. At such a dangerous time, all we have to do is to think of a way to protect the exorcist city. Feng smiled gently. Uncle Xiao is right. Thinking of a way to protect the exorcist city was what she really wanted to do. Whether it was the exorcists in the city or those who had escaped from the ancient tomb, they would never have thought that even if they knew her secret, they would not have the chance to say it out loud. They would only be treated as malicious spirits. That woman is indeed smart. She has always been so smart. Every time, it seemed like that woman had won. But what was the use of that? She would be the only one who would get the city in the end. That woman must have died in the ancient tomb long ago. Now, she only needed to deal with one person. Wushuang. Feng turned her head and coughed softly. I'm worried that Beligaju will bring the 4 great mythical beasts to attack the city. You're the only one who can stop him. Of course, there are still a few demons who will protect me in the city. Back then, he extracted my Buddha bone. I don't know what he will do this time. But there's one thing, stop him. Don't hurt him, okay? Jing Wushuang paused for a moment, then said in a gentle voice, okay. After saying that, he walked into the endless darkness. The resentful baby followed behind him, its tiny fingers clutching the corner of his clothes. Its eyes were fixed on his blood-dripping sleeve. Master, your body, resentful baby, do you know? Sometimes, Buddhism isn't completely likable, is it? Jing Wushuang lowered his eyes to look at the little one. His eyes were gentle as he said, many people who have become Buddhas have walked past me because I am the only Bodhi tree in Shumi Mountain. However, there is only one person who stopped to talk to me, water me, and read scriptures to me. Everyone says that I transformed into a human because I realized the fate of Buddha, but that's not the case. I did it because of her. I don't know when it started, but I wanted to see what this person looked like. I've been in Mount Meru longer than she has, so I know very well what these Buddhas want. They don't want to see anything or people that are beyond their control. But she shouldn't be bound by these things, because she's the variable of the 3 paths. She was reborn in the fire of hell, so she can live on in the most brilliant manner and like the person she wants to like. The ghost baby had dark circles under its eyes. I know what Master wants to do. As long as the demonic mirror exists, the person who will make Master not feel lonely will return. However, you only have 1 piece of Buddha bone left. If even this piece is gone, you will truly die. Bodhi has no roots and cannot be reborn. There's still one more. Jing Wushuang smiled and twirled the hair of the little figure with her hand. I left it in a very safe place. With it, it can attract the light of Buddha. When the phoenix is reborn, of course, it will shine brightly. The ghost baby frowned. Master, do you think there's another possibility? Otherwise, why would you leave 2 pieces of Buddha bone? It's a foolproof plan. Jing Wushuang lowered her voice and coughed heavily. We can't ignore any traces of her return. But the most important thing now is to resist Beligaju. That man never knows when to stop. At this moment, at the entrance of the exorcist city, a dozen exorcists surrounded 2 battered and exhausted seniors. Are you crazy? You want to tie us up? The 2 men looked at the people surrounding them in disbelief. Their tone was full of absurdity. The exorcists looked at each other. They didn't say much to them and directly attacked. Walking from the ancient tomb to the entrance of the city had already exhausted their strength. The 2 men never thought that the big monsters outside didn't make them lose hope, but after entering the city, they felt a chill in their hearts. Call all the elders of the big families here. Did you hear that? All right, even if you can't invite the elders here, you must tell them that Miss Ni is not the reincarnation of the Phoenix Girl. She's a corpse, Before the man could finish speaking, one of the exorcists stuffed the man's mouth with a yellow talisman. You want to slander Miss Ni and cause chaos in the city? Save it, you malicious ghosts. Malicious ghosts? How could they be malicious ghosts? The 2 exorcists struggled violently. They still wanted to say something, but they were already dragged away. Not far away, Hellion Vivian watched everything quietly. She folded her fan and said, You can come out now. Zhuge Yun and the other exorcists were full of anger. How could they do that? How could they treat the people who came back with great difficulty as malicious ghosts? Do you know who is the best at keeping secrets in the world? Dead people. Hellion Vivian said unhurriedly, Now, we are the only ones who know Ni Feng's secret. Of course, she will find a way to shut us up. The only way is to let the people in the exorcist city believe that no one can walk out of the ancient tomb alive. Anyone who comes back is possessed by a malicious ghost, not a living person at all. This way, no matter what you say, no one will believe me. No one will listen to the fact that she is not the Phoenix Girl. When the exorcists heard Hellion Vivian's words, none of them felt good. In other words, we are the bad guys now. What a joke. Would they end up like the other 2 if they also left like the other 2? Thinking of this, Old Li could not help but glance at Hellion Wei Wei. All of them had changed their clothes and identities. Moreover, when they entered the city, they did not make a big fuss, nor did they look for someone to expose Ni Feng's secret immediately. This was all because they obeyed the other party's command. At first, they did not understand. Now, they all understood. They had thought too simply. Hellion Vivian did not answer them. She looked at the noisy street as if she had already expected this result. If I'm not wrong, the protection of the entire exorcist city is now in Ni Feng's hands. All the exorcist families will obey her 100%. No one will notice that all the spiritual energy in the exorcist city is gathering in one place, and no one will notice that the spiritual energy in their body is draining away. The more respected an exorcist is, the more he will become her nourishment. As she said this, Hellion Vivian shook her hand in order to let the exorcists see clearly. The wind in front of them changed obviously. Layer by layer, it flowed to the west. Zhuge Yun was stunned by this scene. Wei, brother Wei. Chapter 793. Hellion Vivian retracted her hand and asked, What's wrong? You actually have spiritual energy in your body. This is such a big matter. Why does Brother Wei's expression look so calm? Hellion Vivian understood why Zhuge Yun was surprised. She smiled and said, Oh? Well, I used to have spiritual energy, but I lost it for a period of time due to some reason. Now that I've eaten the Saraira, I've recovered. But this is too amazing? Zhuge Yun still hadn't recovered from the scene just now. Spiritual energy weathering? I've never seen it before. The other exorcists had also never seen anyone who could transform spiritual energy. They looked at Hellion Vivian with deep shock in their eyes. Well, now is not the time to be amazed. Hellion Wei Wei smiled and said to everyone, Let's get down to business first. No one would have thought that a group of us would enter the city in disguise. However, we need someone to lead us into the Ni family. Hellion Vivian paused and turned to look at Zhuge Yun. Her eyes were full of deep meaning. Let's go find Madame Zhuge first. My mother? Zhuge Yun widened his eyes in confusion and pointed at his nose with his finger. Oldly frowned. But didn't Brother Wei just say that in this situation, we've become the incarnation of the evil spirit in the eyes of others? Wouldn't we be walking into a trap if we go find Madame Zhuge? The Zhuge family has always been upholding justice. Madame Zhuge won't be lenient just because the evil spirit is her son. What if Madame Zhuge knows that Zhuge Yun won't become an evil spirit? Hellion Vivian smiled. Since it's the family heirloom of the Zhuge family, it must have its use. The person who wears the Bodhi Buddhist bone is not only blessed, but also impervious to evil spirits. As the pillar of the Zhuge family, it's impossible that Madame Zhuge, young Master Yun's mother, doesn't know about this. In other words, the only person in the Exorcist city who hasn't been deceived by Ni Feng is Madame Zhuge. The exorcists were shocked when they heard the last part. Even Zhuge Yun himself did not expect that with just a string of Bodhi Buddhist bones, the other party could actually think of so many things, and it was completely correct. Brother Wei, how did you guess all of this? Zhuge Yun was speechless. Hellion Vivian looked at him and said, it's simple human nature and reasoning. Madame Zhuge loves you so much, she won't accept the news that you were killed so easily. And I Feng guessed that some of us might have survived. Moreover, you must have been blessed since you were born, so you must be one of the survivors. Therefore, when Ni Feng was dealing with Madame Zhuge, she said more than the others. She also insisted that you were possessed by a malicious spirit in order to make Madame Zhuge give up. However, she wouldn't have thought about the Bodhi Buddha bone. Madame Zhuge has always been smart, so it's easy for her to see through Ni Feng's lies. Moreover, all the exorcists in the city have taken the initiative, except for the disciples of the Zhuge family. Just now, Elderly also said that the Zhuge family has always been upholding justice. Now that the Exorcist city is surrounded by demons, Madame Zhuge will definitely take action, unless she has already guessed Ni Feng's plot. After hearing Hellion Vivian's words, the exorcists looked around and realized that the disciples of the Zhuge family were indeed not in the Exorcist city. If Ni Feng didn't mention it, they wouldn't have noticed. How sharp is this person's eyes? How can she see so many abnormalities at a glance? It's normal for the madam of one of the 4 major families to bring 2 or 3 attendants into the Ni family for a discussion. Hellion Vivian continued, even if there's only a small chance of survival, we must have our own people in the city. Let's go find Madame Zhuge. Of course, none of the exorcists objected. Hellion Vivian held the Bodhi in her hand and turned to look at the little king of hell who was playing with the demon. Is this Jing Wushuang's Buddha bone? Are you interested in his affairs? The king of hell's son stuffed the dizzy monster into his Qiankuan pouch and said with a pacifier in his mouth, I've told you before, this person is always fully prepared. If you want to be reborn, you can't do without the Buddha's light from hell. Of course, he has to keep a trump card to fight against fate. This Bodhi is probably the last piece of Buddha bone he has. Speaking of which, after you reincarnated, he knew that you needed the Buddha bone for your rebirth, so he removed the Buddha bone from his body. I guess he wanted to use this method to attract the light of 1,000 Buddhas. After listening to him, Hellion Wei pondered for a moment. Her eyes met with the son of the king of hell's crimson eyes. You kept mentioning the word fate from the beginning. He mistook me for someone else because of fate, right? Smart. The little king of hell said with the pacifier in his mouth, I like to deal with smart people. He is the Bodhi. Every person who wants to become a Buddha has to pass by him. Do you know what this means? He originally represented Buddhism. Buddhism doesn't want changes in the world, but he let you be reborn. This is against the Tao, and he has been targeted for a long time. He is a smart person, so he made backup plans. In other words, no matter who you are, only by doing this can the real Phoenix come back. Of course, if he mistook you for someone else, he will regret it for the rest of his life. Hellion Vivian didn't say anything. The little king of hell raised his eyebrows. What? Did you think of something? Share it with me. Nothing. Hellion Vivian narrowed her eyes. I just suddenly thought of a saying. If you want to deceive everyone, you have to deceive yourself first. For example, I lost all my memories because my Buddha bone was removed by someone. Is it possible that Jing Wushuang lost a part of her memory? The little king of hell shook the tall hat on his head. I haven't thought about this. His real body is the Bodhi, so his most important bone will also be the Bodhi. Hellion Vivian held the Buddha bone in her hand tightly. Why would he let his most important bone leave him? The little king of hell widened his eyes. You mean he find the magic mirror first? Hellion Vivian smiled. You're right, all the answers are in the past. The little king of hell nodded and coughed softly. Let me say this first. I didn't come here to ask you to divorce the great demon. If the past is really different from the present, you have to remember that you are the great demon's wife. Don't change your mind. Who said that domestic violence is not acceptable and that we should divorce as soon as possible? Hellion Vivian glanced at him slowly. The king of hell's son chuckled and said, if you were with him, he would only use violence on you. If you weren't with him, he could use violence on everyone, and you might not even be able to survive. Chapter 794. He's not violent. Hellion Vivian interrupted the little king of hell with a smile. She looked at the tall and straight figure walking in front of her. He's very elegant. The little king of hell chuckled with his pacifier in his mouth. He's quite elegant when he kills people. Hellion Wei Wei was speechless. She was speechless. Well, what you're worried about won't happen. I don't plan to change my mind, and I won't like him as much as I like anyone else. I think this kind of thing won't change no matter how many years have passed. We've arrived at the Zhuge mansion. You can knock on the door. Hellion Vivian thought that it would be best to let a child knock on the door. After all, there were no children when they entered the ancient tomb. The little king of hell smiled evilly and carried the axe to the door. He originally wanted to be gentle. This was the most perfect image he could maintain in front of humans. A polite and handsome young man. Who knew that he would forget to control his strength when he pinched the monster just now. When his hands slammed down, the iron door was dented. All the disciples of the Zhuge family rushed to the door, including Madame Zhuge. This was the most anxious day in the Exorcist city. Madame Zhuge had more secrets than anyone else. She even thought of going out of the city to find Zhuge Yun. But when she heard Enai Feng's words during the meeting, she gave up on this idea. Because she knew that the other party was going to kill every single one of those who had survived the ancient tomb. But Madame Zhuge had been thinking about Enai Feng's purpose. The more she thought about it, the more uneasy she felt. She didn't let the disciples of the Zhuge family go out because she didn't want her son to be greeted with despair when he came back. But this couldn't be done. Enai Feng was so unpredictable that Madame Zhuge felt scared. If the Zhuge family kept acting strangely, Enai Feng would definitely notice something. Then, how could she protect the Zhuge family? Madame Zhuge's first reaction was to calm herself down when she heard the noise outside the mansion. She couldn't reveal any flaws. What is it? Madame Zhuge heaved a sigh of relief when she saw the little boy with a pacifier in his mouth. When she looked back, her body suddenly trembled and she clenched the white handkerchief in her hand. So there are guests. Old Lu, what are you waiting for? Let them in first. Yes. Old Lu didn't see their faces clearly, so he lowered his head and invited them in. In the courtyard, Madame Zhuge was calm all the way. After they entered the study and closed the wooden door, Madame Zhuge held Zhuge Yun's hand tightly. Her eyes were red. It was obvious that she had recognized her beloved son. Zhuge Yun's throat was also a little dry. Mother, I'm fine. It's all thanks to Brother Wei and Brother Ju that I didn't suffer any injuries along the way. Now, the whole Exorcist city is looking for survivors from the ancient tomb. Madame Zhuge took a deep breath and said, I was worried that you would be tied up like a fool. Looking at your dressing, you must have avoided those people's eyes and ears. Zhuge Yun smiled and touched his head. It's all Brother Wei's idea. He also said that Mother is the only one in the city who understands. Madame Juga turned her head and looked at Hellion Vivian. Then she knelt on the ground and said, "Miss Wei, we will never forget your kindness." Hellion Vivian didn't expect Madame Juga to be so polite. She quickly reached out and supported Madame Juga. She smiled and said, "Madam, you don't have to do this. I have my reasons for entering the ancient tomb, and I need your help with something." Miss Juga Yun was dumbfounded. "Mother, you mean Brother Wei? Oh no, it's her, she, silly child, can't you see it now?" Madame Juga shook her head with a smile. "You blockhead. Didn't you notice how much Brother Ju cares for Miss Wei?" Juga Yun's mouth was still open. "I always thought he was a homosexual." Madame Juga didn't know whether to laugh or cry after hearing her son's words. On the contrary, after Oldly found out about Hellion Wei's identity, he was even more shocked. "Little Brother Wei is a girl?" Hellion Vivian tidied up her clothes. She knew why Oldly was shocked, but it didn't matter. She looked into Madame Juga's eyes and said, "I need to go to the Ni family to look for something. I hope Madame Juga can help me." "You want to go to the Ni family now?" Madame Juga was worried. "The Ni family is too dangerous now." Hellion Vivian smiled. "Madam, don't worry. Someone will distract Ni Feng. The South Gate will launch a siege soon. She will put all her attention on it. But I have never seen Ni Feng leave the Ni family. Even if someone attacks the city, she will ask the exorcists to deal with it." Madame Juga analyzed. Hellion Vivian put away the Bodhi Buddhist bone and looked at Beligaju. She will definitely go this time because she wants to see someone. That was why this man asked the Green Dragon and Qilin to go to the South Gate. It was a trap. Beligaju looked at her with a faint smile on his face. He was actually happy. He reached out and pulled her over. His voice was cold. "Jealous? Don't be jealous. Her life will be gone when she sees me." The little king of hell heard this and suggested, "Actually, you can use your handsome face to lie down and let Miss Ni take advantage of you. She won't have the mood to care about the magic mirror." "Brat, before I kill you, you'd better shut up." Bailey Jiaju reached out and picked up the son of the king of hell. Then he tossed him out of the door as if he was a fly. The little king of hell pulled himself out of the wall again. He did not care. He carried the axe and said to Beligaju, "To deal with you, Ni Feng will definitely ask Jing Wushuang to go to the South Gate. Even the Green Dragon and Qilin won't be able to hold on for long. So, we need someone to go to the South Gate. Don't we have you?" Beligaju looked at him casually. The little king of hell frowned. "The underworld can't interfere with the affairs of the human world. This is the rule. Don't you want to save your true love?" Beligaju sneered. His words made the son of the king of hell bite down hard on his pacifier. "When did you start having designs on me? Only the Azura king of hell can summon the flames of hell." Beligaju's deep eyes flashed. "You're obviously a spirit of the underworld, but you were born in the heavenly axiom. You're the child who made the entire underworld restless. Isn't that you?" The little king of hell pulled out the pacifier and narrowed his eyes. "You used your divine sense? You still have divine sense? Everyone in the world thought that your divine sense was long gone. Why do you still have divine sense after you fell?" Chapter 795. "Of course, I will protect it." Beligaju curled his thin lips. He didn't do anything, but those black feathers that symbolized evil still fell down. The king of hell's son only saw the danger that could engulf heaven and earth. He reached out and hugged Hellion Wei's leg. With his small height, he could only hug a person's thigh. He whispered again, "Listen to me, don't ever change your mind. If you change your mind, not only will the humans suffer, but the people of Tiandao won't be able to escape either. This man still retains his divinity, so what's the deal with his demonic nature? Damn, he's so good at pretending. Why do you always think that I will change my mind?" Hellion Vivian pulled the little one up and whispered into his ear, "Do I look so unreliable?" The little king of hell looked serious and said in a voice that only the two of them could hear, "No, you are very reliable. The main thing is that I don't believe in the great devil's character. Who knows what he did in the past? The main thing is that he still has his divinity. Do you know what this means? This means that he can go to Tiandao at any time. No wonder he said that he could destroy the Buddha's golden lotus without you recovering your memory. I thought he was just saying it casually. Now it seems that this person is not just saying it casually. With his divinity, he can even go to Buddhism without any problem. But to stop the tampering of reincarnation, I still need to recover my memory, right? Otherwise, His Highness would have started a fight without saying anything." The little king of hell nodded, but his voice was still soft. "The only way to stop the tampering of reincarnation is to let the Phoenix Dharma return to the human world." "I know. You go to the south gate first. I will arrange in the city." Hellion Vivian sent the little one away. Madame Zhuge didn't know what they were talking about. She just saw the little one with a pacifier in his mouth saying that he was going to attack the city. She felt that it was a little forced. How old is he? Can he really do it? "Miss Wei, do you need me to send a few people to follow the little master?" Hellion Vivian smiled and said, "There is no need. The disciples of the Zhuge family are not suitable to attack the city. The battle outside is too intense. Furthermore, people will notice that something is wrong." However, it was true that they should not stay in the manor. All the exorcist families were guarding the city. If the disciples of the Zhuge family did not go, they would be noticed after a long time. Therefore, Madame Zhuge, I will have to trouble you to give an order for all the disciples of the Zhuge family to go out and defend the city. If necessary, you have to pretend to capture the survivors of the ancient tomb. Whatever the other exorcist families do, the Zhuge family will do. "No problem, I'll arrange it now." Madame Zhuge looked at Hellion Vivian with admiration in her eyes. No wonder they could come back safely. This little girl was smarter than she thought. She could even think of this. Hellion Vivian turned to look at Zhuge Yun and the others, and I Feng will definitely send people to investigate if the Zhuge family suddenly sent people here at this time. Try to delay the time. If you are discovered, don't panic. Just act normally. But don't mention that I got the Saraira. Let an I Feng think that I am dead. She should think so now, so it will be fine if you don't mention it. No one disagreed. All the exorcists nodded. After getting along with each other for a while, they all knew that Hellion Vivian had her reasons for everything she did. After everything was arranged, Hellion Vivian looked at Madame Zhuge again. "Madame, my friend and I need to change our clothes. We will wear what your servant usually wears." Upon hearing Hellion Wei's words, Madame Zhuge called two people over and asked them to take off their outerwear. Elder Li wanted to ask something, but when he saw that person's indifferent back, he did not ask. Zhuge Yun could not help but ask, "Brother Wei, Miss Wei, can you tell us what your identity is? Why is your spiritual aura so strong? Is it only related to the Saraira? Also, you seem to be very familiar with the Phoenix Girl. You just came to the Exorcist City and you insist that Enai Feng is a fake. How did you guess these things?" "I didn't guess it." Hellion Vivian put on her outerwear. After thinking for a while, she replied, "Because I am the Phoenix Girl, so I know she is a fake." Elder Li's teacup fell to the ground with a loud sound. When the hot water splashed on his face, he did not feel any pain. He just felt that his 3 views and 6 senses had disappeared. The other exorcists turned into puppets at this moment. Even their breathing seemed to have slowed down. Zhuge Yun's eyes began to shake violently. "Brother Wei, I didn't hear clearly. What did you say?" Hellion Vivian put on her clothes and looked at Zhuge Yun. There was a smile in her voice. "What? Is this how you feel when you see the exorcist you admire the most? You are really the Phoenix Girl? Then why didn't you say anything?" Zhuge Yun was so surprised that he could not speak properly. He grabbed his hair, but his eyes were brighter than ever. Elder Li was also waiting for the final confirmation. Needless to say, the exorcists were so excited that their fingers were trembling. Hellion Vivian pulled down the collar of her clothes. She did not care that much. "Oh, you didn't ask before, so I didn't say anything." Zhuge Yun burst into tears. What did she mean by she didn't say anything before he asked? Shouldn't she tell him directly? The exorcist he admired the most had followed him all the way. When they set off, he even said that he would protect her. The exorcist had the same thought as Zhuge Yun. If they knew that she was the Phoenix girl, Hellion Vivian looked at everyone's expression and laughed again. Even if I said it, no one would believe me. Don't forget, my spiritual energy has just recovered. When I entered the exorcist city, I didn't even have any spiritual energy. It was too unconvincing. Besides, everyone seemed to think that Feng was the reincarnation of the Phoenix girl. No matter how much I said, it would be useless. It would only be taken as a lie, so I didn't say much. The exorcists were stunned. They had to admit that if they were not in this situation, would they believe her? The answer was no. Because for so many years, the idea that Feng was the Phoenix girl had been deeply rooted in the hearts of the people in the exorcist city. They did not even care about the place where the Phoenix girl was once mentioned by an eminent monk. Since the reincarnation of the Phoenix girl was in the Ni family 500 years ago, it must be in the Ni family this time. That was what they thought for so many years. The exorcists did not know how to describe their feelings at this moment. Elder Li stood rooted to the ground, stunned. An unprecedented regret welled up in his heart. He suddenly remembered the excuse he gave to Feng in the graveyard. She was clearly his benefactor, yet he had actually mistaken her for someone else. Furthermore, he had made such a ridiculous mistake. Chapter 796. Elder Li felt as if the cold tea on his face could seep into his heart. He opened his mouth with difficulty. The exorcists also looked at Hellion Vivian, hesitating to speak. Hellion Vivian knew what they were going to say, but she did not care. Feng is indeed smart and good at disguising herself. Everyone will admit their mistakes seriously. Don't think about the past now. Madam, let's go to the Ni family immediately. The little king of hell should be ready. Okay. Madame Zhuge, who came back to her senses, nodded heavily. For so many years, Madame Zhuge had been to the Ni family countless times. After the fall of the Zhuge family, every time she stepped into this place, she felt uneasy. Only this time, she felt like she had a plan. She thought that maybe this was the power of the Phoenix girl. Not only because of the name, but also because the person behind her seemed to be powerful enough to make anyone believe her. Madam. The disciple of the Ni family stopped Madame Zhuge, indicating that it was a routine check. Madame Zhuge cooperated and stood naturally. The security was very tight now. Everyone who entered and left had to be checked. No weapons were allowed in. Madame Zhuge glanced at the disciple of the Ni family. Where's your lady? In the meeting room. After the disciple of the Ni family checked and found that everything was normal, he bowed and said, My lady just said that she wanted to ask you something. Madame Zhuge raised her eyebrows and said to the two people behind her, Since Feng is looking for me, you can wait in the courtyard first. Hellion Vivian lowered her eyes. She knew that Madame Zhuge did not want them to confront Feng directly to avoid any problems. However, Hellion Vivian was not thinking about this. The reason why she agreed to stay in the courtyard was so that she could find the magic mirror when no one was looking. After Madame Zhuge gave the order, she followed the disciple of the Ni family into the meeting room. Feng was sitting in the main seat. When she saw Madame Zhuge, she coughed lightly and stood up like a junior. She was very respectful to Madame Zhuge. Auntie, you're here. Feng, you're not feeling well. Don't stand up. The person who said this was an elder from another family. Only then did Madame Zhuge realize that all the senior exorcists of the aristocratic families were gathered here. They were looking at her as if they were waiting for her to say something. Madame Zhuge recalled what Hellion Vivian had said to her on the way here. Madam, you haven't let the Zhuge family's children come out to defend the city for so long. Feng will definitely find a way to make you say why. When the time comes, you can use the fact that these children are still young as an excuse and don't mention the matter of capturing survivors. It was as the child had expected. Madame Zhuge looked up at Anai Feng and sat in her seat as usual. She wanted to hear what Anai Feng had to say to her. "Auntie." Anai Feng waited for her to take a sip of tea before she coughed and said, "I heard that all the disciples of the aristocratic families went to defend the city, except for the disciples of the Zhuge family. Why is that? Does Auntie have any doubts about my arrangements?" Maybe Feng is too immature to ask such a question, but this is a critical moment for the survival of the exorcist city. Please forgive Feng's rudeness. Madame Zhuge frowned as usual and said generously, "Feng, why would you think so? The disciples of the Zhuge family didn't come out immediately because those children are too young. They don't even have the ability to kill demons. After you finished your arrangements, I went back to teach them something. That's why I wasted some time. Now they should have put on their exorcist suits and gone to defend the city." Just like what Feng said, this is a critical moment for the survival of the exorcist city. The Zhuge family has always been protecting the good and warding off the evil. "We won't do anything wrong. Miss," as Madame Zhuge said, "the disciples of the Zhuge family have gone to defend the city." The servant stood beside Anai Feng and said in a low voice. Anai Fengshuang listened to the news reported by her disciple and smiled. It seemed that she was overthinking. Madame Zhuge was not as easy to fool as other exorcists. But there wouldn't be any trouble. Even if those exorcists entered the city, they would not be able to change anything. No one would believe the words of a person who was possessed by an evil spirit. Now, even Madame Zhuge, the only one who was not easy to deal with, had a certain degree of trust in her. As long as she waited for another 8 hours and the exorcist city was still not broken, she would be able to take everything away from the Phoenix girl and be truly resurrected. At this moment, a rumbling sound was heard. It sounded like something was hitting the city wall. All the elders of the exorcist families stood up with panic on their faces. "What's going on? What's happening outside?" "It's a dragon." Someone looked at the sky. "Look, it's a green dragon." Like the others, Anai Feng also looked towards the sky in the south. Sure enough, there was an azure dragon in the sky. Not only that, the azure dragon seemed to be following someone's orders. It was using its tail to hit the city wall, and its whole body was filled with hostility. Anai Feng saw this scene and was not worried at all. Instead, her eyes lit up. "It's him, he's here." The corners of Anai Feng's lips curled up. She had been waiting for this day for so long. Everything was finally on the right track. In less than 8 hours, all of this would be hers. Anai Feng was not worried that the city wall would be broken because as long as no one entered that place, the exorcist city would always be intact. No one would know the exorcist city's weakness. 3 feet below, there was a place guarded by the Tiandao. Even if it was discovered, no one would have a way to break it. Not to mention that Hellion Vivian was already dead. Even if she was not dead, how could she compete with the Tiandao with just spiritual energy? That person was someone who could subdue a group of demons. Even the demonized Beligaju could only fight to a draw with that person. Unless he had never fallen from the heavens, but how could that be possible? Therefore, not only would the Dharma power of the Phoenix be hers, but that man would also belong to her in the end. Inform everyone to go to the south gate. Anai Feng gave the order and walked out of the meeting room quickly. Behind her were the elders of various aristocratic families, including Madame Zhuge. When Madame Zhuge walked out, she deliberately glanced at the cherry blossom tree in the courtyard. The 2 people who were originally standing there were already gone. They were so fast. Madame Zhuge heaved a sigh of relief. With this, her mission was completed. Whether the exorcist city would survive or perish, and whether the path of reincarnation could be saved, all depended on those 2 people. However, she had been to the Ni family so many times, but she had never found the magic mirror that they were talking about. Would they really be able to find the mirror within the allotted time? Chapter 797. Helly and Vivian originally thought that Anai Fenghui hid the magic mirror in the meeting room because the most dangerous place was the safest place. Since it was in the Anai family, the meeting room was the best location. However, after looking around, Helly and Wei frowned. Could it be that it's not here? If it was not here, then where could it be? It's here. Beligaju suddenly reached out from behind and held her hand. There was a mischievous smile on his face. But it's not on the ground. Helly and Vivian made way for him and subconsciously looked under her feet. It doesn't look like there's a secret layer. Beligaju's voice was filled with mockery. Below this house is the entrance to the human world from hell. That rotten Bodhi placed the magic mirror in hell and waited for the Buddha's light to shine. Although the method is stupid, it's not easy to find it in hell. Then let's go to hell. Helly and Vivian chuckled. She could only hear the unique adjectives that His Highness used. It was either a rotten lotus flower or a rotten Bodhi. It seemed that he really cared about it. Beligaju glanced at her and reached over with one hand to lift her face. What are you laughing at? Nothing, let's go. Helly and Vivian led him over. She knew very well that this was the time to caress him. According to the little king of hell, the current Beligaju should be more powerful than when he was the demon king. Similarly, his desire to control was stronger than before. The way His Highness expressed his love was always different from others. This was really, Helly and Vivian did not know what to do with this man. She simply held his hand so that he would not think of anything else. Bailey Jiaju seemed to enjoy the fact that she took the initiative to hold his hand. He smiled, his bright eyes and white teeth shining brightly. I haven't been to hell for a long time. Compared to the outskirts of the city, the monsters there are much bigger and more. Helly and Wei was speechless. What's with this expectant tone? Soon, Helly and Vivian knew what His Highness was looking forward to. Hell was different from what Helly and Vivian had imagined. She thought it must be a bottomless darkness. Unexpectedly, it was a different kind of beauty. The endless desert followed the arrival of darkness. As the fog spread, the pure white column rose from the ground. It was solemn and elegant, yet cold and desolate. It danced through the sand and clouds. Everything seemed to carry a sacred mark. Beligaju stood there, his long black cloak hanging down to the ground. The strong wind was like a dancing demon, sweeping through the bustling and desolation, lifting his black cloak. Behind him was the setting sun. At this moment, it was as if the entire world was dyed in the color of blood. This was truly the moment of encountering the devil. The serene palace seemed to have a history of thousands of years. It was as tall as the clouds and bustling with life. In front of the palace, there were blooming spider lilies and flames in the sky. The giant carved stone railings had traces of a battle and a white web woven by spiders. It extended to the end of the line of sight until it reached the iron gate. It was replaced by two large stone statues. The stone statues had handsome faces as if they were gods. Helly and Vivian didn't know if it was an illusion, but she felt that the stone statues looked a little like His Highness. Coming down from the meeting hall, they could indeed see the magic mirror. But to reach the location of the magic mirror, they had to go to the top of the palace. The temple was like a gathering place for demons. There were dozens of demons crawling on every floor. They were all staring at them with blood-red eyes. Helly and Vivian studied them. They seemed to be unable to move, as if they were tied by something. As long as they were touched, these monsters wouldn't attack. Thinking of this, she looked at the iron gate of the palace. There was a talisman on it. Was it this? Was it the one that suppressed them? Beligaju walked over slowly. He put his index and middle fingers together and tapped lightly. Creak! The yellow talisman fell to the ground. The huge iron gate seemed to have sensed something. A corner of the gate was lifted under the blood-red twilight. Countless black crows flew out from the temple, and clusters of black feathers fell lightly to the ground. The monsters were in an uproar. Bang! A figure in a white immortal robe landed in front of Helly and Vivian. He seemed to be over 100 years old. His beard was white and long, but the aura around him couldn't be ignored. Especially when he landed, the soles of his shoes sank 3 inches into the marble table. It was as simple as passing through a ball of cotton. It was obvious that this old man wasn't easy to deal with. I was wondering who was so bold to come to hell. So it's a 1,000-year-old demon. The old man smiled and looked at Beligaju indifferently, as if he didn't care about him at all. I advise you to go back. As a member of the heavenly Tao, I don't want to kill. Also, I don't want to stain my hands with the dirty blood of demons. Heavenly Tao? Hellion Vivian raised her eyebrows. So the old man standing in front of them was a god? A god that looked after hell? It was no wonder that so many demons would obediently submit themselves to him. It's not certain whose blood will flow out. Bailey Jiaju laughed, bringing out a never-before-seen demonic nature. Unlike you, I like killing gods very much. Just as he spoke, his black robe fluttered in the air, propping up the barrier behind him that was as deep and transparent as water. The rolling demonic aura in the air was like the howling sea, so vast that it couldn't be detected. The old man sneered. You really don't know what's good for you. All monsters, listen up. This demon is for you. You can eat it however you want. As soon as the old man's voice fell, the monsters that were hovering in the air immediately rose. They bared their fangs and brandished their claws, full of demonic nature. Each one of them was dangerous with a bloody mouth. They fiercely pounced on Beligaju. Layer after layer, they almost engulfed him. You overestimate yourselves. The old man had seen many ferocious monsters. No matter how strong a monster was, it couldn't withstand the attacks of so many monsters here. One had to know that each of these monsters was stained with his immortal aura. Tearing a demon to shreds was a piece of cake. However, just as the old man was about to leave in satisfaction, those monsters that were pouncing on him were bounced back heavily. There was a loud bang. Every monster was lying on the ground, their claws clutching their chests. They looked like they were in great pain, curling up their entire bodies. The old man narrowed his eyes and looked behind him. The demon that he thought would be torn to pieces was actually still standing in the same place, safe and sound. Not to mention a scratch on his face, there wasn't even a single wrinkle on his robe. Other than the blood that indicated that he had just attacked, there wasn't a single change on him. Beligaju even had his arm around Hellion Vivian's waist. Under his feet were large enchanting flowers, like a miracle that led to hell, rendering the whole way. Chapter 798. The crisscrossing airflow turned into silence at this moment, and in the silence, the tide receded like white light. The thousands of monsters couldn't help but stop what they were doing at this time. Thousands of years ago, they had also seen this scene. 6 paths of hell, above the blood sea, that person also stood high in the sky, looking down at the boiling black water below, and asked if anyone was willing to follow him to the heavenly path. At that time, it was like now, enchanting flowers bloomed all the way. From then on, there was no sinful blood sea in hell, and thousands of monsters bowed their heads. The heavenly path flourished for a time, and finally became the head of the 6 paths. All of this could only be done by that person. Only the emperor, who was born from chaos and had infinite miracles, could do it. But that emperor had clearly fallen from the heavens. How could he have divine sense? The old man looked at Beligaju, his brown eyes slowly widening, as if he had seen something inconceivable. For the first time in his life, his sleepy eyes were filled with strong surprise. He opened his pale thin lips, wanting to speak, but found that his throat was so dry that he couldn't make a sound. This is absolutely impossible. This is just an illusion created by a demon. A fallen person will never be able to recover their consciousness. The old man took a deep breath and looked coldly at Beligaju. Even if you are him, everything in front of you is just a bluff. Do you think I will be afraid of you? As the old man spoke, his eyes narrowed, and the gas in his palm began to condense, shaking the surroundings. He quickly swept towards Beligaju. That movement was not something an ordinary person could do. Before he could even blink, his hand was only a few centimeters away from Beligaju's Tianling point. However, just as he was confident that he could break this person's head, there was a bang. The sound of stone breaking. He didn't understand how he was bounced back, and when he fell heavily to the ground, he only felt that his internal organs were in pain. The dark black petals rose and fell. Everything seemed to be in slow motion as if magic had been cast on it. He really used divine sense. He had used the divine sense that shouldn't have existed. The old man slowly raised his brown eyes and said weakly, "Impossible. You've already fallen. How could a fallen person have a godhood? This is impossible." Peh. His deep and magnetic laughter was like golden sand that slowly flowed past, outlining the cold and aloof Jean Gay. "With me here, nothing is impossible. It's just that I don't want to return to the way of heaven." Beligaju looked down at his feet with a smile that was not a smile, and gave old man Tiandao a thought-provoking answer. His body was already covered in blood, but it did not affect his temperament at all. His chiseled face was pale like crystal and he looked extremely evil. Could it be that you have never lost your mind?" The old man's eyes widened, but before he could finish his words, the black feathers that covered the sky and earth pierced through his hands and throat. The blood seeped into the desert and warmed the earth. Beligaju didn't care at all as he walked over. The thousands of demons retreated, and the scene was bright and spectacular. The demons covered their claws in the palace and didn't dare to take another step forward. They stiffly moved their shells, afraid that the man would take their lives with a single movement. They trembled as they called out, "Emperor!" Beligaju stood in the middle and coldly said, "Scram." The demons immediately gave up their original spot and desperately curled themselves into a ball. They followed His Highness' orders and slowly rolled backwards. The sadness in their hearts was like a river flowing backwards. Why didn't anyone tell them before? How could Emperor return here? Didn't they say that a fallen person could no longer become a god? What a joke! No matter how thick their skin was, they couldn't withstand such a merciless attack. These demons seem to know you? When Hellion Vivian turned to look at Beligaju, there was a smile in her eyes. After all, the scene of these incomparably strong demons trembling into a ball was a bit too funny. Beligaju walked forward with his long legs and raised an eyebrow. "I've seen them once, but I'm not familiar with them." "The demons? Who was the one who brought them to the heavenly Tao and beat them for 500 years, and now he's saying that he's not familiar with them? They seem to have something to say to you." Hellion Vivian held back her laughter. Beligaju glanced at them from the side. "The demons, they curled themselves up into a ball again. Continue to roll. They have nothing to say now." Beligaju reached out and carried Hellion Vivian up. Hellion Vivian rubbed her forehead helplessly. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. His Highness was really domineering in certain aspects. The black crow feathers fell, but Beligaju didn't stop. His slender figure flashed and landed in front of the demonic mirror that was suspended in midair. He said in a mocking voice, "Is this the mirror that can reflect the 6 paths of reincarnation?" Hellion Vivian seemed to have seen something in the mirror, and she couldn't help but reach out her hand. In an instant she felt the world spin, and even her perception disappeared. Therefore, she didn't know that the scene in the demonic mirror was the scene of Mount Meru 1,000 years ago. Thousands of miles of Buddhist land, boundless lotus flowers. On Mount Meru, the glazed path, the 9 heavenly steps winding down, hidden in the clouds. Buddhism had invited the heavenly Tao to a banquet to celebrate the end of the blood sea in hell. Originally, this matter was supposed to be left to Buddhism. After all, it was more appropriate to leave the task of delivering all living beings to Buddhism. However, it was said that the only killer in Buddhism, Phoenix, was injured when she went to the demon world to subdue demons. Although the demon world was stable, it was not suitable for her to clear the sea of blood. In this case, the task of clearing the sea of blood could only be left to the heavenly axiom. "I heard that the Emperor went personally? This time, the heavenly axiom is going to be more powerful than Buddhism. As long as the Emperor is around, the heavenly axiom will always be the most powerful, right? Phoenix is also very powerful. For the past few hundred years, Buddhism has had the upper hand in many things with her around. So the reason why the Emperor came to Buddhism this time is because he can't stand her, right? I guess both of them can't stand each other. The last time the heavenly axiom invited Buddhism, Both of them didn't show up. This is too disrespectful to both sides. But I heard that Phoenix has to recite scriptures, and the Emperor is also too lazy to go out. This is just an excuse. The Emperor has always liked women who are gentle and soft. I guess he found an excuse to not show up because Phoenix is too tough. These two have never met face to face for hundreds of years. This time, the banquet is going to be interesting. The nagging voice faded away with the clouds. No one noticed that under the two swaying trees, a figure lying down took away the scripture covering his face and laughed softly. How valiant am I that I can force people not to attend the banquet. Chapter 799. After rubbing her head, Phoenix sat up cross-legged. Her blood-stained kasaya was dragging on the ground like flowing water, and her soft black hair was hanging by her side. When she got up, a faint sandalwood fragrance wafted out from her body. A small monk stood in front of her and said hesitantly, "Lady Phoenix, you are indeed very valiant. That's why you should restrain yourself and attend the banquet. Don't let these messy rumors spread. Most importantly, if you don't attend the banquet, you are not giving face to the heavenly Tao. If you don't give face to the heavenly Tao, the Buddha will punish you and punish you by chanting scriptures. Do you think you are made for chanting scriptures? Every time you chant scriptures, you will drag a group of small monks over to listen. Can't you consider their ears? They are going to become Buddhas. Become Buddhas. Become Buddhas. Important things need to be said 3 times. If you want me to attend the banquet, that's fine." Phoenix looked at the small person in front of her who looked calm on the surface but was roaring on the inside. She smiled and said, "Reduce my confinement by 2 days." The small monk shook his head and said, "The Buddha said that you will be confined for as long as you want. I hate being restrained the most." Phoenix's voice turned cold. The little monk chanted, "Amitabha," and said, "That's why the Buddha said to keep a close watch on you. You didn't say who you met in the demon realm and why you were injured. The Buddha naturally had to lock you up for 3 days. It was only 3 days, but you asked for 2 days less. That's too greedy of you." The Buddha said. Phoenix stood up and fiddled with her long hair and said, "You do have the potential to become a Buddha." The small monk opened his eyes wide in surprise and said, "Really? Of course it's true. You talk so much, it's a pity that you don't chant scriptures." Phoenix reached out and touched the small monk's bald head. "All right, I'm going to attend the banquet. First, bring me the sacred water I got from the heavenly Tao." The small monk was also very cute. He nodded and asked, "Lady, are you going to water it again? It's a pity to give the sacred water to a Bodhi tree. I heard that the sacred water of the heavenly Tao should be used to irrigate the golden lotus. The Bodhi tree can live without water. Oh right, I also heard that yesterday, the golden lotus transformed into a human and became a Buddha. She's very beautiful. She's going to attend the banquet today." So, Buddhism wants to use a honey trap on a certain emperor? Phoenix put her hands behind her head and smiled lazily. It was none of her business. The little monk walked behind it and said, "You can't say that. Yu Lao said that this is called love in the mortal world. It's very, very beautiful. In the future, tell Yu Lao that in the human world, this is called a blind date." Phoenix took the godly water from the small monk's hand and gently smiled. "Just call the man and woman together for a meal. If they find each other pleasing to the eye, they can enter the bridal chamber. Understand?" The small monk was confused. All right, stop it. You're still young. It's not suitable for you to go on blind dates. However, Phoenix would never have thought that there was such an old saying, "The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind." She heard someone else's words. Naturally, someone else would hear her too. "Emperor." The young novice monk who led the way smiled awkwardly. He had always known Lord Phoenix's temperament. Her words were blunt, but most of the time, she would not see anyone. Hence, there had never been any trouble. But the little monk raised his head and looked at the emperor, who had a faint smile on his face. He hurriedly explained, "Emperor, please don't misunderstand." "Misunderstand?" The man opened his mouth. His white robe spread out like 1,000 layers of petals. His hair fell on his robe like a waterfall, like a lotus flower silently blooming on the surface of the water at night. What do you mean by misunderstand? Does Buddhism intend to give a woman to me? Or is it a blind date? The little monk was at a loss for words. He did not want to hear the word blind date ever again. Let's go. I'm very curious about what you Buddhists will say at the banquet. The man laughed again. The smell of blood from the 6 paths of hell could still be smelled from him. The little monk didn't dare to say anything. He could only watch as the millions of light specks swam and danced behind the man's back, transforming into endless towering glaciers in the void. He felt as if something was about to collapse at this moment. No one had ever been able to use the divine sense in the Buddhist way. It was a great disrespect to the conversion of all Buddhas. After you, Emperor. The little monk lowered his head and wiped the sweat on his forehead with his long sleeve. He was thinking about what to do when the two of them met at the banquet. One represented Tian Dao, and the other represented Buddhism. They had never gotten along peacefully. If they fought as soon as they met, the little monk did not dare to imagine the scene. He only walked forward quietly. He could not help but look back at the Bodhi tree. Phoenix was still watering. Her hands had once saved thousands of resentful spirits and killed countless demons before she became a Buddha. Therefore, the other Buddhists did not talk much to Phoenix, but they also did not talk about her. After all, at least in Buddhism, no one dared to face her directly. Phoenix had been like this since she was young. She did not have a monk friend. Every day, she would kneel in front of the Buddha and pray. When she was not in Buddhism, she was usually very quiet. Other than talking to the little monks, she would occasionally sit under the Bodhi tree and pray while watering. Just like what others said, the mythical water was wasted in places where it should not be wasted. When little Phoenix heard this, she smiled while holding the Bodhi tree. Who said it was a waste? No matter how beautiful the golden lotus is, there are countless of them. There is only one Bodhi tree on this mountain, and that is Jing Wushuang. Therefore, the Bodhi tree had a name, Jing Wushuang. It was also from then on that little Phoenix began her journey of watering the Bodhi tree. Phoenix had grown up, but the Bodhi tree had not yet transformed into a human. It did not even have 6 senses. Lord Phoenix, I heard from the Venerable that the Bodhi tree cannot transform into a human. The little monk reached out his small hand to help Phoenix hold the porcelain bottle. It is the same no matter how much mythical water you pour on it. Phoenix smiled and straightened her body. It is not that he cannot transform into a human, but he has always been helping people become Buddhas. This is a great merit. Do you understand? Wait a minute, Lord Phoenix. Did you comprehend this? The little monk widened his eyes like a small animal. Phoenix raised her eyebrows. Anyway, my Wushuang will become a human and a Buddha one day. The mythical water was originally mine, so it is up to me whether it is wasted or not. If others want to take it, let them fight with the heavenly axiom. If they win, they will have it. This is too overbearing. Not everyone likes to fight so much, right? The little monk held the Buddhist scriptures and trotted behind Phoenix. Lord Phoenix, you must be quiet during the banquet, okay? Don't fight with the emperor, okay? We are people who pray to Buddha, so we can't be too violent. Also, this time, the emperor is here for the blind date, I know. When the time comes, I will be a wallflower at the side. However, I can't guarantee that I won't fight back if he wants to hit me. After saying that, Phoenix continued to walk toward the boundless sea of clouds. Chapter 800. The little monk knew that no matter what he said, Lord Phoenix would not listen to him. It seemed that he could only set up more vegetarian dishes for Lord Phoenix during the Buddhist feast. As long as there was food, Lord Phoenix would not be so fierce. Therefore, on this day, the vegetarian dishes in front of Phoenix's table changed from 2 to 8, and there was also a plate of immortal peaches as a bonus. Just like that, the feast began, and thousands of Buddhist lights shone. The top and bottom of Mount Meru were full of flowers. It was as if a path was specially paved for someone. In the hall of great strength, whispers sounded from all directions in the void. The topic of discussion was none other than the emperor sitting in the seat of honor. Elegant, ascetic, handsome. Then, there was such an emperor, and there were actually a dense number of demons hibernating behind him. Right at the Buddhist feast, they emitted a strong demonic aura that made people shudder. Were they here for a meal? They were clearly here to cause trouble. Did they think that they were monks who did not know the ways of the world? They knew that too, okay? This was the Hall of Great Strength, the holy land of Buddhism. When had there been demons? However, the emperor praised them as soon as he entered the door. That's right, it was praise. The specific way of praise was as follows. I have always admired all of you for having the 6 paths in your hearts and delivering all living beings from torment. At that time, they also very politely said Amitabha, this is what Buddhist cultivators should do. However, they did not expect the man's next sentence at all. Since that's the case, it shouldn't be a problem for me to bring them here for a meal, right? As soon as he finished speaking, a group of demons appeared behind him. Dark evil swept over from between heaven and earth. The man smiled slightly and continued to add, after all, they are also creatures within the 6 paths, what else could they say? They could only swallow the bitterness into their stomachs. This emperor was too shameless, okay? He did not give them any room to refuse at all. Venerable Lord Phoenix is here. The little novice monk lowered his voice and reminded his master. After all, in such an atmosphere, speaking up required courage. The venerable one fiddled with the prayer beads in his hand. He raised one hand and chanted, Amitabha, please invite Phoenix in. The young novice monk retreated. Not long after, a person walked over from the cloud stairs. His black hair reached his ankles, and every step he took was like a lotus flower. Unlike the other Buddhas, in addition to the snow-white kasaya, Phoenix also wore a blood-red fur cloak. The light of Buddha made her clothes and long hair flutter forward like a meteor breaking through the sky. Just by standing there, she could occupy the entire sky with the light of Buddha. The man sitting at the top of the hall watched this scene. He rested his chin on his slender fingers and casually changed his sitting position. As soon as Phoenix entered, she felt that something was wrong. When he raised his head to look at the seat of honor, he realized where the lingering smell of blood came from. She had seen many ferocious and evil monsters. However, there were not many who dared to appear in Mountain Tenya. It was even rarer to see a man who dared to sit in front of these monsters. She could not see the man's face clearly in the light of Buddha. However, this did not affect her desire to fight. Phoenix tilted her head and smiled. Before the crowd could react, the prayer beads wrapped around her slender wrist turned into a beautiful scimitar in the light of Buddha. The tip of the scimitar moved forward unstoppably like a shooting star in the light of Buddha. It approached the man sitting at the top of the hall. All the deities and Buddhas, regardless of whether they were from Tian Dao or Buddhism, opened their eyes wide and looked up. Emperor? Emperor? Phoenix frowned. The tip of the scimitar stopped 5 centimeters away from the man's chest. The man was not embarrassed by the threat of the scimitar. He raised his eyebrows and looked at her with his long legs slightly crossed. He did not have any intention of dodging. Instead, it was as if he did not care about her attack at all. There was no change in his beautiful eyes. Just as Phoenix was considering whether to take back the scimitar or not. Clang! A deafening sound was heard. The scimitar was cut into 2 and turned into light spots, falling from the clouds little by little. At that moment, the upstanding chi was released. All the Buddhas were shocked. Phoenix's scimitar was transformed from prayer beads. It was not something that could be broken easily. This emperor was too. Sorry, I did not control my strength. The man's voice did not sound embarrassed at all. I just did not expect Buddhists to greet each other like this. Using a scimitar? Speaking of this, the man even smiled. In the light of Buddha, no one could see this fleeting smile. It was indescribably graceful and noble. However, the hand that reached out and pressed on Hellion Vivian's back was strong and powerful. It carried a strong smell of rust and blood. He looked at Phoenix. His chiseled face was extremely handsome, but his eyes were flashing with indifference. The spacious hall was silent for a moment. No one made a sound, and no one moved. Little Monk, who followed behind Phoenix in a hurry, looked at this scene in a daze. He pressed his little bald head and felt a headache coming on. He had sinned, he did not stop, Lord. Did his lordship hate the emperor so much? He did not even say a word and directly started a fight? Your Excellency, you're too intolerant. Just because the other party thinks that you are tough and more powerful than you have to hurt him. A monk cannot be like this. Amitba. It was undeniable that Little Monk had really misunderstood Phoenix this time. Phoenix took action because of the overwhelming demons. She was used to killing demons, so her first reaction was to draw her scimitar. Who would have thought that he was the one who brought the demons into Buddhism? That's right, Phoenix actually knew this emperor. It was just that the light was too bright and she did not see clearly. The outside world said that they did not get along for so many years. In fact, they had never really fought. They had only met once or twice, and they were all far away. Except for the last time, when she went to capture demons, he happened to be there. The best thing about Tiandao compared to Buddhism was that they could go out and have fun. However, she did not know if she had ruined something good for him, so her arm was cut by a scimitar. He did not recognize her at that time. When the moonlight shone, he raised his eyebrows. "It's you?" His tone was as if he had been caught having an affair. What was going on? However, she did not say much to him. They were just nodding acquaintances, and it was just an accident. She nodded and caught the demons that she wanted to capture and returned to Buddhism. Then it was this encounter. He seemed to be even more unfriendly than her. Phoenix smiled. It did not matter, because she did not like him that much either. Chapter 801. After retracting her hand, Phoenix waved her wide sleeves, and the broken scimitar appeared in her palm again. Then, it transformed into Buddhist prayer beads and wrapped around her wrist again. Seeing that she did not intend to continue fighting, Little Monk breathed a sigh of relief. Then, he heard her smile and raised the corner of her eyes. I didn't expect that the people from Tiandao would bring a group of demons to Buddhism for a banquet. Is Tiandao short of money now? Hearing this, the man's indifferent eyes looked up and met with Phoenix's eyes. Their eyes were the same, nothing more than that. All the gods and Buddhas seemed to be able to hear the crackling sound of the fire. The Venerable coughed softly. Little Monk hurried forward and pulled the corner of Phoenix's robe. "My lord, you will be grounded. You don't want to be grounded again, right?" Phoenix lowered her head and looked at the little one. She touched the child's head and laughed. "Where's my vegetarian meal?" "It's already been prepared." Little Monk lowered his voice. "The table with the most vegetarian plates is yours." As if he was afraid that the emperor would hear him, he put all his strength on his fingers. Phoenix raised her eyebrows. "Oh, I know. Eat more and don't fight, right? Bring me there." Seeing Phoenix walking to his seat, the Venerable Inakasaya said, "Phoenix will react like this every time she sees a demon. The emperor is frightened." The man curved his thin lips and smiled deeply. "It's indeed a beautiful blade. It's a pity to keep it in Buddhism." "Amitba, is the emperor talking about that scimitar?" The Venerable smiled. "If the emperor wants it, he can take a string of Buddhist prayer beads back. After practicing for 100 days, he can turn it into a blade." The man retracted his gaze and smiled more gently. His eyes seemed to be able to reflect the shadows of the demons behind him. "You don't have to be so polite, Venerable. I'm not talking about the blade." "Not the blade? What was that?" The Venerable frowned slightly and did not continue on this topic. He faced the deities and Buddhas and said, "The clearing of the blood sea is not only a blessing for Buddhism, but also for the samsara. Yesterday, the golden lotus was able to turn into a human and become a Buddha. It was also because of the emperor that the golden lotus was able to express her gratitude by reciting the Buddhist scriptures for 100 days to spread the good news of the world." As the Venerable One spoke, the clouds churned and the woman who had become a Buddha walked over. Her long white kasaya robe was like a blooming lotus flower, emitting a faint fragrance. The woman smiled with a bashful look on her face as she chanted, "Emperor. So this is the golden lotus. It was raised in front of the Buddha. It is indeed extraordinary. It's just that his cultivation is too low, and his Buddhist position is also a little low. You can't compare things like that. Golden Lotus was born in Buddhism. Because she was influenced by the Sanskrit, she transformed into a human. The rest of the people were only Buddhas after going through the hardships of the human world. They weren't pure enough. Don't you know that the emperor likes pure people? According to this, Phoenix also grew up in Buddhism. When she was born, 33 rays of Buddha's aura descended to hell. It was the true Buddha who carried her into Buddhism. Although she didn't become a Buddha immediately, she was purer than anyone else. She is pure, but she is the number one in Buddhism. This time, the Venerable One wants to appease the heavenly axiom by sending the Golden Lotus out. Is he going to send Phoenix to appease the heavenly axiom? That's true. Who in Buddhism is better than Phoenix's Buddhist position? Even though the Buddhist position was obtained by killing countless demons, it was still unbeatable. When Phoenix had something to eat, she would usually be quieter. She was not very interested in blind dates. However, little Monk, who was at the side, would occasionally give her a signal with his eyes. He was trying to tell her not to fight with the emperor. In fact, Phoenix felt that she did not have any particularly big conflicts with someone. Although someone did not like her, she did not like him either. But had they ever been unfriendly? Phoenix carefully recalled her meeting with someone. Due to the distance between them, that person's elegance was innate. Didn't she always nod and greet him? Why did others think that she would definitely fight? The little monk heard Phoenix's question and chuckled. He said, "My lord, don't be so hypocritical. You almost stabbed the emperor just now. Also, you used to say that you would greet him from a distance. It was very cold. How can a nod of your chin be considered a greeting? I learned all that from him." Phoenix ate a piece of chestnut cake and chewed it. Her eyes were full of smiles and she looked indifferent. I greeted him the same way he greeted me. The little monk looked at her left and right. Yes, the emperor does nod to everyone he sees. However, when it's done by the emperor, it's very special. When it's done by you, it's very provocative. It depends on your temperament. Do you understand? I think I have a good temperament. Don't many people from the heavenly axiom propose to me? Phoenix put down her wooden chopsticks. She wanted to compete with her own appearance. The little monk chuckled again. That's because the heavenly axiom needs you to fight for them. Okay, I understand, Phoenix smiled evilly. It's the same reason why Buddhism wants to win over the emperor. The little monk nodded and held his wooden fish with his small hands. Anyway, my lord, you have to behave yourself today. Besides, it's useless for the heavenly axiom to propose to you. My lord's love is used to save the world. Buddhism wants me to save the world. Phoenix repeated this sentence. Her eyes turned cold. That's a good choice. The little monk didn't understand why Phoenix suddenly stood up. My lord, where are you going? I've completed my mission. I'm going to water the plants and recite scriptures. Phoenix moved her hand and the scimitar appeared in her palm. No one would stop her. No one dared to stop her. In the hearts of the Buddhas, killing was always bad. Therefore, the Tsang Mountains and Irai were so vast. In Buddhism, there would always be such a figure, straight and lonely. When she said that she was going to recite scriptures, Phoenix would really sit under the Bodhi tree and recite scriptures. However, her posture was always lazy. She would say something to the Bodhi tree every time she turned a page. You're the only one who can always be with me. I was injured in the demon world this time. However, the demon world is quite interesting. I can even see mermaids. It's just that I can't stay there for too long. I'll be grounded. I feel like my hands are locked. It's a terrible feeling. However, it's worth it if I can transform you into a human. As she spoke, Phoenix fell asleep. Her white robe and black hair were enough to fill the air like flowers when spread out. As if there was a breeze, the Bodhi tree that hadn't moved for thousands of years swayed comfortably. It turned out that year, the Bodhi tree felt something because she wanted to comfort him. To comfort the lonely you in the 3,000 worlds. Chapter 802. Others did not know what Phoenix was thinking. They firmly believed that the Emperor of Tian Dao and Phoenix of Buddhism would definitely become enemies this time. Therefore, in order to prevent both of them from meeting, little Shamey would always take another route when he led the Emperor into the Hall of Great Strength. Buddhism's intention was not entirely to create an opportunity for the Emperor and Golden Lotus to meet. Originally, clearing the Sea of Blood would cause even the Buddhists to be tainted with evil spirits. Moreover, the Tian Dao's people had to chant sutras for a few days. The Emperor was cooperative, but every time he came, he was surrounded by a dense black fog. During that time, the Buddhists did not have a moment of peace. Phoenix did not need to go to the demon world to kill. She just leaned under the Bodhi tree, raised her eyebrows and looked at the black fog. She turned her head and continued to sleep. Little Monk was in charge of delivering vegetarian food to Phoenix. Originally, he could go back and chant sutras after delivering the food. However, this time he saw Golden Lotus chanting sutras for the Emperor. The Emperor looked like he did not hear what Golden Lotus was saying at all. There was no one in his eyes. He stood there elegantly and threw the lotus seeds with one hand. Those demons came over to eat. They even arranged themselves in the shape of goldfish with watery eyes. At that moment, Little Monk felt that there was no need to chant sutras to get rid of evil spirits. The Emperor could totally tame these demons successfully. They were being fed like goldfish. How could there be such a miserable demon? Little Monk found it more and more interesting. He put down the bamboo box in his hand, supported his cheeks with his two small hands, and watched with great interest. This was the scene that Phoenix saw when she walked over while rubbing her starving stomach. She only wanted to take the bamboo box. However, all the Buddhists who were chanting sutras stopped when they saw her. Little Shamey, who was following behind the Emperor and Golden Lotus, took a deep breath. After the Celestial Emperor finished feeding, he turned around and saw her as well. This was great. Everyone stood up to stop them from making a move. Phoenix took the bamboo box and looked at the dishes inside. She was quite satisfied. She had never been a picky eater, so she naturally wanted to leave after getting the food. The venerable Buddhas were chanting scriptures, but they didn't like her presence. Therefore, she had always chanted the scriptures by herself. Therefore, he had no intention of staying any longer. Are they going to make a move again? All of you watch out. With Emperor's personality, it's impossible that he won't seek revenge from Phoenix for what happened at the Buddhist feast. I've heard that the Emperor's revenge is usually very vicious. He's more than ruthless. Those who provoke him, be it gods or Buddhas, which one of them ends up well? Phoenix isn't that easy to deal with. It's hard to say who will win. Closer, they're getting closer. The two of them were indeed very close. Only, it was a pity that there was no confrontation of gazes like last time. Sparks flew in all directions and no one fought with the other. But the atmosphere was very cold, because no one had any intention of giving way to the other. Suddenly, there was some tit-for-tat. Little Monk tugged at the corner of Phoenix's robe and chuckled. Then, he raised his head and said to Phoenix, "Actually, you're walking to the right because you want to say hello to Emperor, right? Say hello?" Phoenix raised her good-looking eyebrows. "Please, master, just say yes. Otherwise, I'll be punished." Little Monk's voice was very soft. Phoenix wouldn't reject a child. She retracted her gaze and smiled faintly. "Yes, it's a greeting." All the gods and Buddhas were used to the two of them meeting. They were either cold to the point of being arrogant, or they were arrogant to the point of using knives. Greeting? What's going on? Everyone's eyes lit up again and again. They stared at the two of them from all angles to see what they were going to say next. The man turned a blind eye to all of this. Finally, something caught his eye in his indifferent eyes. Even his smile became playful. "Oh, since it's a greeting, you should say something. What do you want to say to me?" "Say something?" Phoenix was stunned for a moment. But her original intention wasn't to greet him. Thinking of this, she glanced at the golden lotus behind the man and instinctively blurted out, "It's nothing. It's just that you're here for the matchmaking banquet again?" All the Buddhas. Matchmaking banquet? Matchmaking banquet. Little monk lowered his head and cried. Master, you might as well not say anything. Matchmaking banquet? The man smiled and slowly bent down. His voice was so low that only she could hear it. With whom? If it's you, I can consider it. After all, to a certain extent, you really want to be destroyed. Phoenix raised her head and smiled. It seems that you still want to fight? When I said destroy, I meant another kind. The man's bright eyes fell on her collarbone under her robe. At this moment, there was a touch of real evilness on his handsome face. Phoenix frowned. Stay away from me. I can't fight these 2 days. If you want to fight, let's fight another day. Are you going to be grounded again? The man smiled, which was different from his usual self. You're indeed suitable to be locked up. Phoenix felt that someone was particularly talkative today, so she didn't continue the conversation. She was very hungry, so she walked around the Buddhist gate and left. The man seemed to be angry, but also not. He looked like he was smiling, but the stone steps under his feet were broken. Seeing this, the demons all shuddered. Golden Lotus stepped forward with a gentle and beautiful face. Emperor, don't lower yourself to the same level as the Supreme Phoenix. Her temper has always been like this. She can't tolerate people, but she's still kind at heart. The man didn't say anything, but his smile became wider. After a period of time, the demons basically knew this man better than anyone else. Their scalps were numb from that smile, and they couldn't guess what he wanted to do. After he walked away gracefully, black fog lingered outside the 33rd heaven. The man said in a very low voice, "Do you guys think we should catch and lock her up?" The demons thought that the man was talking about Golden Lotus. There's no need. After the emperor's wedding, Golden Lotus will belong to the emperor. The man paused in his steps and was very confused. Golden Lotus? The demons started to act like goldfish again. They were very, very obedient. At this moment, the man threw a bomb at them. I'm not talking about her. I always want the best. The Supreme Envoy, the Wisdom King Phoenix. Fong Phoenix? Cough, cough, cough. The demons were choked by the lotus seeds. Emperor, this shouldn't be possible. The man stretched out his hand and pulled one of the demons over. Why would I care if it's possible or not? However, I'm not interested in marrying anyone. I'm just thinking about what it would be like to lock this person up. That scene would definitely be very beautiful. The first reaction of all the demons was that the emperor was crazy. Their second reaction was that this man had never failed in what he wanted to do. Chapter 803. From that day onwards, little Shamey was even more afraid that they would meet each other. He tried his best to prevent them from appearing in Buddhism at the same time. Just like that, everyone in the 6 paths, be it deities or Buddhas, basically knew about the conflict between Phoenix and the emperor. All of them cooperated with little Shamey and tried their best to prevent them from meeting each other. Tai Bai Heavenly Immortal shook his head and said with a smile, these 2 people didn't have such a big conflict in the past. Although they didn't like each other, they still nodded to each other when they met. Why are they so incompatible now? Sure enough, a mountain can't accommodate 2 tigers. You should know that the emperor doesn't like women who are too tough. Now that he has chosen the deities and Buddhas, which one of them isn't beautiful and clean? Plus, this phoenix is too strong. It's only a matter of time before they become hostile. If you ask me, I think it's time for the emperor to settle down. Whether it's the golden lotus of Buddhism or the snow goddess of Tiandao, they're both not bad. Speaking of this, there's also one in the Dragon Palace. She's so beautiful, I've been wanting to talk to the emperor for a long time. Wait, I have a fairy from Mount Motsong here. She's been admiring the emperor for a long time. Other than her looks, she's also very talented. She's the perfect match for the emperor. The exalted immortals of the heavenly Tao were so noisy that the entire dome was shaking. The man sitting on the seat of honor had no intention of speaking. He crossed his legs calmly, but there was something he was curious about. Fishes. This was the name that the emperor had just given to the demons. The demons immediately formed the shape of a goldfish. Go ahead. My beautiful prey, and I don't seem to be on good terms? The man raised his eyebrows as if he was really confused. The demons collectively felt helpless. They roared in their hearts, everyone in the 6 paths knows that you're enemies. What do you mean by, don't seem to be on good terms? When have you ever met each other? If we didn't follow you, we would also think that every time you met Phoenix, you would want to cripple her. It was only because she was a Buddhist that you couldn't do it. Of course, we already know that you don't care about other people's feelings, but we never thought that you have such dirty thoughts about Phoenix. What? Is it difficult to answer my question? The man chuckled as he looked at them. The demons had a hard time disguising themselves as goldfish, so they didn't dare to move at all. They tried their best to speak in a calm tone. There is indeed something a little off. The man smiled again. His smile was so profound that the demons couldn't figure out what he wanted to do. In fact, what the man had to do was very simple. Since everyone felt that they were not on the same page, then he had to subvert their understanding. It would also prevent these people from bothering him with who he was meeting today and who he was meeting tomorrow. A certain emperor glanced at the portrait on the table again, his eyes faintly showing impatience. However, that impatience was well concealed by him. On the second day, when he was going to Buddhism, the little monk wanted to lead him up the mountain, but he changed his route. The little monk panicked when he saw this. He ran all the way behind the man. The emperor's route is really not that smooth. Please wait. It was indeed not smooth. After all, there wasn't any route where one would see the betrothal gifts of a proposal halfway through the journey. There were so many of them that it was impossible to count. There was a little monk standing opposite the betrothal gifts. The little monk felt that he was too short, so he tried to tiptoe and said to the Son of God of Tianshan Mountain, "Son of God, please go back." Our Lord still has to recite scriptures, so she won't accept your betrothal gifts. Little Master, please go back and report that if Phoenix agrees to marry, Tianshan Mountain will give her the same treatment that she received in Buddhism. I believe that Lord Phoenix will make the right choice. After all, she's not young anymore, the Son of God of Tianshan Mountain said in a firm tone. He looked at the matchmaker Golden Lotus leisurely. Golden Lotus laughed and said in a gentle voice, "Yes, little master, please go back and talk to the Lord again. The Son of God is elegant, and it's really good. The most important thing is that the Son of God has a good temper, both of them are compatible." But the little monk opened his mouth. He was interrupted by a lazy yawn. "You don't have to say any more, I've made the right choice." It was Phoenix. She walked over barefooted with a scripture in her hand. She met the Son of God of Tianshan Mountain's stunned gaze with a smile and continued, "Son of God, please take your betrothal gifts and leave immediately, do you understand?" The Son of God of Tianshan Mountain really liked the looks of the woman in front of him. However, he wanted to hit her as soon as she spoke. Unfortunately, he was no match for Phoenix, so he could only attack her with words. "It seems that I've come to the wrong place this time. The rumors are true, a Buddha doesn't look like a Buddha. No matter how beautiful she is, she's just a facade." As he spoke, the Son of God of Tianshan Mountain turned around and wanted to leave. However, he did not expect to bump into the Emperor when he turned around. "Emperor? Why are you here?" Recently, the Heavenly Axiom had become the leader of the Sixth Tao, and the Emperor of the Heavenly Axiom was someone that everyone wanted to curry favor with. The Son of God of Tianshan Mountain was no exception. The Emperor raised his eyebrows and said in a dangerous tone, "Why? Can I come?" Of course you can come." The Son of God of Tianshan Mountain was very friendly. "You must be here for Golden Lotus. Look at my memory, how could I forget about this?" The man did not say anything. He only looked at the Son of God with a smile, but there was no smile in his eyes. At first, the Son of God of Tianshan Mountain did not notice it. However, after being stared at for a long time, he felt a little uneasy. He moved uneasily and asked, "Emperor, is there anything on my face?" The man smiled and said with a wicked smile, "I'm just curious. Why do you have the courage to come out when you're so ugly?" The Son of God of Tianshan Mountain was stunned. He opened his mouth but did not know how to refute. However, don't worry. You'll never need to use the words "only looks good" in your life. The man patted the son of God of Tianshan Mountain's shoulder and said in a gentle tone, "Because you don't deserve it." Hearing this, the little acolytes could not hold it in anymore. They looked at the son of God of Tianshan Mountain's face and burst into laughter. The son of God of Tianshan Mountain's face turned green as if he had swallowed a toad. It was a horrible sight. He finally knew why he could not afford to offend the emperor. He covered his face and ran down the mountain path awkwardly. However, he did not understand how he had offended the emperor. Chapter 804. Seeing that the god of Tianshan Mountain had left, little monk felt rather melancholy. What about his betrothal gifts? If the venerable one saw them, she would be grounded again. Betrothal gifts? Phoenix laughed. That's easy. Keep the valuable ones and throw away the worthless ones. Little monk opened his mouth. Keep them? But what if the god of Tianshan Mountain comes again? And the venerable one? Remember, this is not a betrothal gift. It's the incense money donated by Tianshan Mountain to Leiyin Temple. Phoenix played with a string of jewelry. Tianshan Mountain won't be so stingy, right? Do we still have to take back the donated items? Little monk nodded, although the solution suggested by the venerable one was not bad. But why did it feel like a robbery? Wasn't the god of Tianshan Mountain here to send the betrothal gifts? Now, not only did the god of Tianshan Mountain lose his face, he could not even take back the betrothal gifts. He could have provoked anyone, but he had to provoke the venerable one. But why was the emperor still here? Phoenix had the same thought as little monk. She raised her eyebrows and looked at the man standing in front of her. What's the matter? The man's voice was very faint, and he did not hold back. Ask your little monk to pour me a cup of tea. I'm not used to standing outside and talking. Phoenix was stunned when she heard this. Was he really looking for her for something? I don't have tea here. Phoenix did not have any deities here, so of course, she would not prepare tea leaves or spring water. Little monk heard his venerable one's words and immediately reached out to pull Phoenix's clothes. Phoenix looked at him, wondering what was going on. Little monk chuckled and tried to smooth things over. Since venerable one Phoenix doesn't have tea leaves here, Emperor, why don't we go somewhere else? As long as you don't fight, everything is fine. He even suspected that the emperor said that he wanted to drink tea just to provoke Phoenix. The man did not pay attention to little monk's words. He stopped in his tracks, turned around and walked toward Phoenix. His tall and straight figure was lowered, and his long arms were behind her back. His aura was very strong, and there was something dangerous about him for no reason. No tea? It's over, it's over. They're definitely going to fight this time. Not only the little monk, but even the little monk was so anxious that his forehead was sweating. Yes, Phoenix said with a smile, but there's wine. I brought it from the demon world last time. Do you want a drink? Sure. The man looked at her and smiled. He retracted his hand and tidied up his robe. Lead the way. That was it. The little monk and the little monk looked at each other. Wow, they actually didn't fight. Furthermore, he wanted to stay and drink. Drinking in Buddhism? If this wasn't disrespect, then what was? Golden Lotus was still standing there, and the faint smile on her face gradually faded. She originally thought that if she introduced someone to Phoenix, Phoenix would agree. After all, the condition of the god of Tianshan Mountain was not bad. Now it seemed that she had underestimated her. As expected of the almighty Lord Phoenix. The little monk sensed Jinlian's gaze. Lady Buddha, I won't be chanting scriptures for the emperor today, we'll talk about it tomorrow. Golden Lotus smiled gently. The heavenly axiom has asked me to go there often, but the two of you should stay by the side of the Phoenix Emperor, don't let them get into a conflict. The little monk chanted Amitabha and watched Golden Lotus leave. After that, he quickly ran towards the direction of the sacred land. He was afraid that the two of them would not come to an agreement and start a fight. It was undeniable that these people were overthinking. Phoenix had never drunk with anyone before. Thinking about it carefully, This was the first time someone had come to her place as a guest in hundreds of years. She felt that it was a novelty, so she took out all the wine jugs buried under the ground. Looking at the table, only the wine seemed to be a little monotonous, so she put some peanuts on it. Phoenix lowered her head and peeled the peanuts. After peeling them, she put them on the wooden plate, not caring whether the emperor liked them or not. Anyway, it was fine as long as she was a good host. When the man saw her actions, he raised his eyebrows. "You're giving them to me?" Phoenix nodded excitedly. She felt that receiving guests was quite interesting. The man's voice was very faint, but it was indifferent. "I don't like to eat things that have been touched by other people's hands." Phoenix pursed her thin lips indifferently. She took the wooden plate and continued to peel the peanuts. However, this time, she put all the peanuts she peeled into her mouth. "Why are you looking for me?" It was really rare for the two of them to sit together and have a good chat. If this were to spread, everyone would be stunned. "It's nothing much." The man played with the colored glass cup in his hand and said in an indifferent voice, "I'm here to propose to you." Phoenix did not respond. The little monk and the little monk suddenly stood up. "Propose? Who's proposing to whom? I must have misheard." The little monk rushed over with a red face. "Emperor, you're joking, right?" Phoenix looked at him and thought, why is this child more excited than me? But, what's wrong with this man? "Both of you go out first." Phoenix thought for a while and decided to send the little monk and the little monk away first. How could the little monk be willing to leave? What kind of explosive news was this? "Milord, please don't go out." No one dared to disobey Phoenix's order. The little monk pinched the little monk's clothes. After the two of them went out, they looked at each other. The little monk asked the little monk, "Do you think this is a new method that Emperor came up with to provoke Milord?" Using a proposal to provoke Milord? The little monk felt that his world had been turned upside down. This was definitely a nightmare. The little monk said seriously, "I feel that it's more of a joke." "I hope so." The little monk decided to keep a close watch on the door. If the two of them were to fight, it would mean that the emperor was serious. If the two of them were to be polite, it would mean that it was a joke. Or maybe it was like what the little monk said. The emperor wanted to provoke Milord to take revenge for the stab in the Hall of Great Strength. No matter what it was, it didn't seem to be a good sign. Amitba, after sending them away, Phoenix lazily lay on her side and supported her head with one hand. She looked at the man and asked, "What's the matter with you?" The man's eyes followed her movements. His gaze slid down the side of her face, slid past her slender and fair neck, and finally landed on her half-opened cassock. Her exquisite and beautiful collarbone always made people want to break it. "I ate a lot at the matchmaking banquet recently. I don't want to eat any more." The man withdrew his gaze and put down the wine cup. "You must be tired of receiving betrothal gifts recently. It doesn't feel good to be confined, right?" Phoenix raised her beautiful phoenix eyes. "Even if I wanted to find someone to deal with these troubles, why would I look for you? Emperor, you're a big trouble." Chapter 805. Why? The man smiled with indescribable charm, "Because I'm the only one in the Six Tao who is prettier than you." Phoenix paused for a moment and realized that she could not refute the man's words. She had to admit that the man was indeed prettier than her. He was a demon who could kill the Six Tao with his looks alone. He was the only one who could compare his looks with a woman. "Let me think about it." Phoenix suddenly thought of something and said, "Don't you have the golden lotus?" The man frowned. "Who are you talking about?" "The golden lotus, the Lady Buddha," Phoenix reminded him. The man continued to frown. "I don't remember." Phoenix suddenly felt that what Buddhism had done these days was in vain. The poor venerable was still hoping to win someone over with her beauty. It was like a river of spring water flowing eastward and could not be taken back. "I heard that you're raising a Bodhi tree." The man said faintly, "I'm in charge of the entire Tiandao's sacred water. You can get it without violating Buddhism's rules in the future." Phoenix looked at the handsome face and suddenly smiled. "Sounds like a good idea. But we can't really get married. How long is the time limit?" More than 40 days. Emperor Huang put the wine glass to his lips and took a sip. After 40 days, there will be a tough battle between Tian Dao and Buddhism. We'll be separated then. Phoenix ate a peanut. You even leaked such information to me. Well, since you've been in contact with many women, you should know how to get along with them. I don't know. After the matter was finished, the man did not need to continue to stay. He stood up with his long legs. She did not know what he was thinking, but he threw her a roll of ancient paper. But I have the logic that a normal person should have. Look carefully at these regulations. I will come over tomorrow and have a vegetarian meal together. You read the scriptures to me. Phoenix took the roll of ancient paper and flipped through it. She frowned. The daily life of human partners? The first rule was to have a meal together. Are you the one who wrote this? Phoenix was very suspicious. The man brushed the dust off his fingertips and smiled charmingly. I took it from Yu Lao. This man was the only one who could say the word rob so calmly. Phoenix was very interested in Yu Lao's things and decided to study the regulations on this scroll of ancient paper. You've read it all? No, you can just tell me after reading it. The man was never interested in this kind of thing, but I suddenly thought of something. What? Phoenix's interest was piqued. The moment the man saw her eyes light up, he felt as if he had seen something small. It was furry and he wanted to touch it. Speaking of which, she was originally a phoenix. If someone asks who was the one who pursued who, in order to avoid being exposed, the uniform answer is that you are pursuing me. Phoenix's hand that was eating peanuts paused. Why aren't you the one who pursued me? Do you think I look like someone who would chase after someone? The man asked unhurriedly. Phoenix glanced at him. Indeed, he didn't look like the emperor who would have countless followers just by waving his hand. But she didn't look like someone who would chase after someone either. I'm the one who proposed and you're the one who pursued me. This is only fair. The man's words sounded very reasonable. Phoenix nodded. I heard from Yu Lao that there are many things to do when pursuing someone. That was before you pursued me. Now you have pursued me. The man's voice was always very indifferent. Phoenix, she didn't do anything but she managed to pursue him? Indeed, the ancients were right. There was only a thin veil between a woman pursuing a man. All right, it's settled then. Phoenix said and added, remember to bring the mythical water tomorrow. The man's long legs paused. She was a living immortal who did not eat the food of mortals. She was too pure. In addition to being pure, her eyes were also very beautiful. They were as black as ink. If one looked at them for a long time, they would sink into them. No wonder Emperor wanted to hunt her down. As far as they knew, the more beautiful something was, the more it could stimulate Emperor's competitiveness. Chapter 806. What are we going to do today? A certain emperor was always so nonchalant as if no one was around. It was as if he was born this way, just like the green bamboo and winter plum blossoms that could never melt away from the hustle and bustle of the world. Others did not know what he was talking about. However, Phoenix knew. She took out the ancient scroll that she always carried with her and glanced at it. Her gaze fell on the 6th item and she whispered, according to the progress, we should be holding hands today. But won't it be weird when we eat? The man looked at Phoenix and did not say anything. He directly took action. He reached out and held her hand. Then, with a strong force, he held it in a domineering manner. Phoenix paused for a moment. Then, she lowered her head and looked at the man. How am I going to eat like this? I'll feed you. The man's fingertips fell on the 7th item of the ancient scroll. It shone with the light of pearls and precious stones. While you're at it, you can also complete the 7th item. Today is the right day to show off your love in public. Phoenix thought about it and agreed. The heavenly feast this time had invited everyone from the 6 realms. It was more than the Buddhist feast last time. It was indeed in line with the 7th item. Someone had thought of it quite well. Phoenix felt a sense of accomplishment to be able to complete 2 items in one day. Hence, she sat beside the emperor with a smile. However, This scene was too exciting for the gods and Buddhas. Am I seeing things? Just now, the Emperor held Phoenix's hand. Most importantly, Phoenix looked so sweet instead of cutting him with a machete. There must be something wrong. There must be something wrong somewhere. No, I'm going to pursue my beloved goddess. Since the Emperor can be together with Phoenix, why can't I pursue Chang'e? Chang'e was speechless. Phoenix looked at the chaotic scene below. Now, she could finally experience the fun that the man had mentioned. Sure enough, it was always pleasant to see others getting angry. Although Golden Lotus became a Buddha late, she was arranged to sit at the front because she was born in front of the Buddha. Naturally, she saw everything that happened. Her originally gentle face froze for a moment. Then, she smiled and said, "Lord Phoenix, why didn't you tell us about such a good thing? I even took the initiative to introduce the god of Tianshan to you. It turns out that you've been together with the Emperor for a long time. This is so unexpected. I don't even know what to say." Hearing that, Phoenix lifted her eyes and glanced in the direction of Golden Lotus. Her lips curled into a smile and she looked lazy. However, the Buddhist prayer beads on her wrist glowed as if they could see through people. At a time like this, shouldn't it be enough to just say congratulations? Of course. Golden Lotus paused for a moment and immediately said, "Of course, I have to congratulate you. It's just that I'm so surprised. During the Buddha feast, you and the Emperor were fighting fiercely. In just a few days, you and the Emperor are together. If I tell this to the Venerable, he'll definitely be happy for you." Hearing this, the others in the Sixth Tao began to discuss. That's right. A few days ago, didn't they say that Emperor and Phoenix would either mock or fight each other when they met? How did they get along so well today? The man crossed his legs slightly. His deep eyes swept downwards like the dark night. There was a reason why Phoenix took action that day. That's right. She did have a reason. However, someone shouldn't know about this reason. Phoenix was more or less confused. The gods below asked, "What's the reason?" "Jealousy." There was a smile in the man's voice. "Actually, Phoenix has always been chasing after me. She doesn't like it when I interact with other women. She also doesn't like it when someone introduces someone to me." The gods and Buddhas didn't expect this reason. To be honest, even Phoenix herself didn't expect this reason. She turned her head and glanced at the man. "Don't worry. I won't see other women in the future." A certain emperor was very calm. He was addicted to acting. Phoenix didn't know what to say at all. She could only keep silent. Instead, the surrounding people started to discuss incessantly. So it was because of this. In other words, Phoenix and Emperor didn't see eye to eye before because Phoenix was jealous when the Emperor met other women? Probably. Yu Lao listened to the commotion. He didn't have the mood to drink anymore. He looked at the two people sitting in the seat of honor and thought to himself, probably not. These two people were born with the fate of either you die or I live. They would never be together. Moreover, one of them was Phoenix of Buddhism. Phoenix couldn't be married. Otherwise, the people of Buddhism wouldn't have kept her in Buddhism. She was the only one who became a Buddha by killing. Buddhism still needed her as a sharp blade. If a sharp blade had feelings, how could it be unstoppable in the Sixth Tao and deliver all living beings from torment? Even if she had feelings, she had to keep her feelings in Buddhism. However, if the other party was the Emperor who wasn't controlled by the Sixth Tao, wait. Could it be that something went wrong? Yu Lao suddenly stood up and walked out with a pale face. He didn't care that someone was calling him from behind. He hurried back to Yu Lao Temple and said to his two disciples, "Where is the string that I asked you to set up for the Emperor?" The two disciples looked at each other. "Isn't it in your pocket?" "Master, don't tell me you're drunk again?" "My pocket." Yu Lao seemed to have remembered something. He reached out and touched his robe. It was empty, and even the book was gone. How could this be? Where did it go? The two disciples looked at each other again and said slowly, "Master, your character of forgetting things after drinking is really bad. Last time, when the Emperor gave you the osmanthus wine, you were addicted to it. Didn't you exchange the thing in your pocket with the Emperor? The emperor even said that you couldn't get it back after you exchanged it. You even nodded and agreed. What the hell? I'm finished. Yu Lao knocked his head heavily. His brain really didn't learn. He was clearly on guard against that person asking him, but why did he tell him everything when he asked? However, the emperor, why didn't you just tie the red string of fate to anyone but Phoenix? What exactly do you want to do? Yu Lao knew the emperor very well. This person was naturally fickle. He definitely didn't fall in love with Phoenix. He must have other plans. Yu Lao was right. The man did have his own plans, especially for Phoenix. Sleep at my place tonight. Chapter 807. Wait a minute. What did he hear? The emperor asked her to sleep at his place? Sleep. Little Monk was still holding the vegetarian food that his master wanted to pack. After hearing this news, he was completely dumbfounded. The victorious fighting Buddha and Sea Immortal, who were sitting beside them, almost spat out the food in their mouths. Two pairs of eyes looked at Phoenix with sparkling eyes. Sleeping together so quickly? Is it really good to develop so quickly? Phoenix felt a little embarrassed being stared at. With so many pairs of eyes watching her eat, her digestion would be affected. However, why do you want me to sleep at your place? Phoenix raised her eyebrows. Why don't you sleep at my place? It's very comfortable there. The clouds are thick. Everyone was speechless. Was sleeping there the main point? The main point was that the two of them were going to sleep together, okay? I'm not used to sleeping in the clouds. The man paused and whispered in Phoenix's ear, and the manual also states that the female should sleep at the male's place. Phoenix knew this, but were they really going to sleep together? Isn't it fine to just go through the formalities? I can go to your place, lie down, and then return to my place. As Phoenix spoke, she looked at the hand that was holding her. She wouldn't have known if she didn't look, but when she compared them, she realized that even this pair of hands was better looking than hers. This man was indeed the public enemy of the world. After hearing Phoenix's words, the man smiled and his eyes were cold. I think we should follow the manual seriously. The manual states that we should spend the night. But isn't it too fast for us to change from the 7th to the 19th rule? Phoenix's tone was inevitably a little doubtful. The man's thin lips curled up. With our intelligence, it's fine to be faster, isn't it? That's true. Phoenix had always felt that the man was smart, and she wasn't stupid. It was fine to be faster. The man looked at her nodding seriously, and the smile in his eyes couldn't be concealed anymore. He actually took it seriously. What are you smiling about? Phoenix raised her head and glanced at him. Her thin lips were slightly pursed, and there was an obvious curve on her face. It was a rare expression. The man's eyes darkened. He reached out and turned her face around. Phoenix was not slow either. Seeing that he was about to make a move, she immediately clasped his wrist with 10% of her strength. The man soon felt the pain, but he didn't let go. He just curled his lips playfully. How could he forget that if this woman was really angry, no one could stop her? The more she was like this, the more pleasurable it would be to break her. Huh, it's nothing. There's something on your face. The man moved his finger and rubbed the tip of Phoenix's nose, pulling out a strand of hair. Phoenix let go of his hand and thought for a moment before saying, "Next time you come near me, tell me. I'm fast." The man nodded to show that he understood. His voice was very light. "Go back and pack your things in a while." "You still need to pack?" Phoenix ate the food that he gave her. Her face was full of surprise. She had never had the experience of being a guest at someone's house. It was inevitable that her eyes would widen. The man suddenly felt that it was not bad to feed someone like this. As long as that person could be like little Phoenix, she would be quiet when she wasn't eating, but when she was eating, her cold little face would puff up and her beautiful eyes would look at you with clear distinction. The only fly in the ointment was that the time was too short. In order to make this time longer, it would be best if he could make that pair of eyes only have him in them. Of course, you have to pack your things for the night. The man smiled again. His finger moved across the first few items. Furthermore, we can do all of these once overnight. Phoenix's gaze followed the man's finger. Kiss on the forehead? Say goodnight? Read on the other person's lap? Didn't you say that with our intelligence, we can skip these things? I just thought about it. Since we can do all of these things before the night, why not? The man's tone was very calm. It was as if he was saying buy one get one free. Why not? It was very convincing. Phoenix had never been someone who liked to be taken advantage of. Furthermore, it was a very fun game. Since they could do all of it, they might as well do it once. All right then, I will go back and pack my things in a while. Phoenix had never stayed outside for the night. This experience was very interesting. She believed it again? The smile in the man's eyes surged again. He looked at the round little face that he was feeding. It was unexpectedly cute. At this moment, the only ones who could hear the man's words were the demons' faces twitching. Although they had always known that the emperor was very shameless, they didn't expect him to be so shameless. He actually used words like, since we can do all of these things before the night, why not? To trick them. He obviously wanted to do it. The moment he opened his mouth, he wanted to abduct them to sleep in his house. It was obvious that he wanted to do these things. You better be quiet. The man lowered his voice and warned the demons behind him. If you are too noisy, I will lose my patience. If I lose my patience, you know the consequences. The demons instantly shut their mouths and retracted their breaths. However, Phoenix still sensed something. She looked up at the man and asked, did you just release the demons from the blood sea? Sometimes they need to breathe. The man smiled. He turned his head and asked Phoenix, do you want to eat another little bean? Phoenix shook her head and said in a low voice, I don't like sweet things. It was natural for the two of them to exchange one sentence after another. It was rare that the emperor was smiling all the time and looked very patient. The Buddhas and gods were stunned. It was too exciting. Drink another cup. You don't eat meat too, right? The man seemed to have thought of something and suddenly asked her. Phoenix nodded and didn't say much. The man smiled. A ray of light flashed across his eyes. What would happen if she ate it? He really wanted to see. Sensing this thought, the demons looked at each other. Emperor wanted to let Phoenix eat meat? Wasn't that breaking the precept? Phoenix was a Buddhist. Eating meat was tantamount to breaking the Buddhist precept of killing. Although her hands were stained with blood, it was all because of voodoo. However, eating meat was different. It was indeed different. Phoenix had never eaten meat. She only ate a bowl of noodles in the human world once. There was no meat in that bowl, but it was cooked with pig soup. After returning to Buddhism, she vomited as if she had shed a layer of skin. She didn't even have any strength left. This was her only weakness. Except for Bodhi, no one knew about this weakness. She didn't intend to let anyone see it. That you're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.